Still in public. Hello everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. In this session of weekly current affairs, we'll be talking about topics from Sunset TV and the Economic and Political Weekly. Before we dive into today's classes, let me give you a set of instructions. So it is about our one-stop preparation point for your UPSC needs. That is the Byju's Exam Prep app. So all you have to do is show your or connect your tablet to the Wi-Fi. So the app will be automatically downloaded and you can register using your registered mobile number with us. Okay. So register using that and then such a link will come. You have to continue with Google there. Then in this interface, you'll have to choose the IAS option because that is what we are going for here. And then again, choose the IAS option from here. And then we move to the home page. Okay. So on the left side, we have the Byju's tablet learning program. So this will be the interface for those students. So you'll be seeing a home section. So within that, you can access the classes. So the important point about the exam prep app is you can get access to your study materials, your unit tests, your webinars. So everything is available from this single source. Okay, so you don't have to worry about your student portal not getting connected and all that from now onwards. Okay, so same is the case with the home learning program. You can use from the Byju's My Classroom option. Okay. So now let us go into the topics of the day. So we'll be taking up these 5 topics. So one is about the population situation in our country. Second is about unproductive parliamentary sessions. Third is about elusiveness of gender equality. Fourth is about the inequalities in school education. And the final one is about publicly financed health insurance schemes. All of these topics are extremely important from a mains point of view especially, and to some extent important from a prelims point of view as well. So I hope you will pay the right attention. So the first topic is the population paradox. So the context for this is recently the United Nations World Population Prospects report has been released and it has reignited discussion on India's population issues. So the report has been released and as a result of it, the population scenario in India, the demographic nature of Indian society has been brought back into the discussion. So first of all, let us see some of the very details from the report. Then we will go into the topic in depth from a UPSC standpoint. Okay. So as per the report, it says that the world population has rose 7-fold in just 200 years after taking thousands of years to reach 1 billion. So this is the scenario. So all throughout the history of the humanity, we were struggling to reach 1 billion and it takes almost till 1800, I would say 1800, 80,800, we reach 1 billion. And from there, in another 200 years, the population just grew 7 times from 1 billion to 7 billion. It happened in just 200 years. Okay, so we'll look into the nuances of it. And the global population will surpass 8 billion this year. Okay, so that's a huge number, right? 8 billion of us in the world. And it comes with its own attendant challenges also. Okay, and the number is expected to increase to approximately 8.5 billion by 2030, 9.7 billion by 2050, and 11 billion by 2100, that is 2100. So how do we use this kind of data when you write an answer? So you can just make a approximate graph. Okay, so it doesn't have to be to scale or anything. So you can just draw like, see, 9 points. You can just put these years like 2020, 2030, 2050, 2100, and you can just draw a graph like this showing this data. So it will add some value, extra illustrative value to your answer. Okay, that is how you have to interpret and use this data in your answers. And Asia is home to around 61% of the world's population. So out of this 8 billion people in the world, almost, what is the 60% of it? Almost 5 billion or 4.8 billion. If you look at it, it's in Asia. Okay, so we hold the major part when it comes to humanity. That is one place where we are very, very much on the top of the rank, right? So this is the point that we want to discuss further. Why are we studying population in so thorough detail? See, we know we consider humans very important to us, but why are we studying it in such a significant way, in a deep way? Because studying about the population or forecasting demographic change are critical for national development planning and executing the sustainable development goals. So these two ideas will be taking up very crucially in the upcoming discussion. And some more data from the report: India is expected to overtake China in terms of population by 2023. So I hope all of you would have been hearing about this data from our childhood, right? So first highest when it comes to population, the first rank is China, second is India. That has been what we have studied all throughout our school life or college life or our public life or whatever it is. And finally it is happening, friends. We are going to overtake China in 2023. Okay, so it is not at all a matter of any significant pride, because there are so many challenges associated with it. Okay, so the figures indicate that India will continue to have a large working age population, which will be expected to support an increasing number of the elderly. So before we further go into the report, I want to give you some idea about the population growth and about why is it important as UPSC aspirants. Why are we so focused on population, or why did I say in the beginning that it can be a very important topic for exam? Let us look into it. So first of all, when it comes to population, the utmost importance comes from two angles. Okay, one is about carrying capacity of the planet. So can we accommodate all these rising numbers? Okay, so when the people are going to increase in the planet, is the planet enough, or does the planet have all the resources that is necessary to support such a large population? That is our first point. Okay, so the carrying capacity of the planet is one major question. Second thing is the nation states, the countries of the world. Will the countries of the world be able to support this rising population? Will the countries or will the nations be able to provide a decent standard of living to them, a decent health facilities to them, proper access to education, proper skilling? Will they be getting jobs, meaningful employment in this country? Will they be able to build a house for themselves, right? So these are all the concerns the country faces when the population goes up, or I mean the nuances of population happen. So these are the two angles from which we have to first of all understand populations. Okay, the rising population, will the planet as a whole be able to carry that population? Second thing is, will the country in respective countries of the world, but as far as we are concerned, as far as UPSC is concerned, how will India fare on that count? That is what is more significant to us, right? So that is one major angle. Okay, adding to that, I want to put one more layer of understanding on top of that. Okay, so all of you would have heard about demographic dividend, right? So what do you mean by demographic dividend? I hope some of you have heard about, or a lot of you, or most of you would have heard about the term, but you might have thought, oh, it's something to do with population, or maybe you might not have given much thought beyond that, right? So I need to take a second to briefly state what demographic dividend is. So demographic dividend, simply speaking, it is an economic advantage that a country gets because of its higher population in the productive working age group. That's very important. Okay, so when a country has high amount of population in the productive working age group, that is approximately from 15 to 59 or 15 to 64, international standards vary, but 15 to 60 you could take. Okay, so these are people in the productive age group, the working age group, right? They are independent, they can work, they can earn money, they can support others, right? So when the country is in such a situation that this set of population is the highest in the country as compared to the dependents before that, that is people from, or children from 0 to 15 years, or elderly over 60 years, these two, those two on the ends are dependent population. These two on the ends depend on the working age population in the middle for survival, sustenance, and everything. So the accelerated economic growth that a country achieves when the population in that middle group is the highest. That is what is meant by demographic dividend. So from an Indian standpoint, we study demography primarily because of this dividend of late. Okay. So what is this dividend we are speaking about? So in India, almost like if you take the average age group of India, it's somewhere around 28 to 30 even now. Okay, the average age of Indians. Okay, we have almost 125, 127 crore people. Out of that, if you take the average age, it's like 28, 30, that kind of a range. That means we are a young nation if you look at the age of people, right? So what is the advantage? So a majority of the people are in the working age population. So they can work and support the economy. So this is the moment for India to shine. This is the moment for India to grow and become a developed nation. So we always hear politicians or our PM, he's speaking about we want to become a 5 trillion economy. We want to be the world super economic power. Why is he emphasizing that? Because we have a resource, that is our demography, our population that is in the working age group is currently a resource for us. Okay, if we tap into it properly. So these are some of the angles you have to keep in mind. Along with that, another thing that you have to keep in mind is if this demography is not given the proper health support, proper education, proper skilling, there could be a disaster or there could be a burden for this country. Understand? So these are the ideas that you have to keep in mind before we go any further. Okay. So I hope you follow till here. So moving forward, let us come back to the report and let us interpret this report in light of the information or analysis that I shared now. Okay. In 2021, the total fertility rate has reached 2.0 or less than replacement rate. So when it comes to total fertility rate, what you have to keep in mind is how many of us do we replace? That means if each one of you are getting married, that is two of you, right? You and your wife or you and your husband. So when you pass over from this world, how many of you are, I mean, how many of them gets replaced? Is it two? Are you giving birth to two kids or more than two kids? Okay, so the replacement level is 2.1. It's a statistical number. You just remember that number. The replacement level of population is 2.1. That is every couple should give rise to two more kids. Then only the population will keep moving like this. Okay, so we are trying to reach this replacement level. So with this decline in India's total fertility rate, as you know, it's related to how many kids are born to the parents. Simply speaking, that is what you have to keep in mind. Okay, so once this fertility rate is declining, means less kids are born to families. That means women will have more free time, right? So women can enter the labor market. Women can become active economic agents. They can go for a job, they can look after themselves, they can support the family, they can support the children, right? But if the woman is giving birth to 5 or 6 kids, where do they get the time to go for a job? Where do they get the time to participate in an economic activity, right? And Indian infant mortality were substantially higher than the global average during the 1960s and 70s. However, it has fallen dramatically below the global average. So infant mortality rate means number of kids that are dying out of every 1 lakh. Okay, so it's about 26, and it is still significantly lower than that of Pakistan and Nigeria. So these are certain numbers. Okay, so in comparison to China, we said India is breaching China in 2023, right? It's a very momentous year when it comes to demographic studies across the world. Okay, so this is that thing happening. So this has been the trend. The blue line is of China and the red line is of India. Okay, so this is the point where they're meeting and India is overtaking. So China is declining. So around 2060, if you look at from there, China's population is going on a downhill. India's will take some more time to decline. Okay, so this would be India's peak population, the maximum that India will reach. Okay, so again, this diagram, you can keep it handy for your answers. So now let us look at what is contributing to this growth in world population. So whatever are the factors that are contributing to growth in world population, the same applies for India. You have to keep that in mind. Okay, so when you say that overall at the world level, at the global level, the population growth is reducing, population growth rate is reducing, but it doesn't mean the absolute numbers are coming down, right? So or put it in another way, we are saying that it is going to reach 8 billion now, by 10 billion by 2050 or 2100. So when we say the population growth is declining, how is this population increasing? Some of you might have that doubt, right? So what is decreasing is the growth rate. For example, I'll put in an example. So if it is 10% growth rate, for every 100 people, 10 people. I mean, if population is currently 100, next year it will become 110. After that, it will become 120. That is the growth rate. So that rate is declining. So from 10%, it is becoming 3, 4, like that. Okay, but even if it is a 3% growth rate, it will still add to 100 plus 3. That is 103 will happen. So that is the current increase in population that we are seeing, which will soon come down to the replacement level of 2.1, right? And with this increasing population beyond 8 billion, who are going to contribute to that? That's a very important area to focus, right? It will be concentrated in 8 countries of the world: the Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Tanzania. These are all African nations. India, Pakistan, Philippines from the Asia. Okay, rest of it is all African nation, 3 countries from the Asia. But we have to think about India. You have to know that China is not there in that list because of China's one-child policy being extremely successful. Second thing contributing to growth in world population is falling mortality rate. So see, the population is the number of people that is out there in the world. Okay, so how can that go up? Either more people getting born or less people dying or leaving the planet, right? So falling mortality, growth in population, both contribute to increased population in the planet. So falling mortality rate, obviously due to advances in science and technology, health, reaching health services to the last sections of the society, etc. So global infant mortality has reduced. These are all things that we know. Another thing is underutilized contraception. So what is this contraception? Contraception is birth preventive technologies, like there are pills, there are physical things like condoms and those kind of things. So these are all meant to prevent the birth of a child. Okay. Over the years, the worldwide fertility rate has continuously declined. However, contraceptive use remains underutilized. Okay, so see, even though we have this contraceptive facility, even the government provides this. Okay, government provides this pills, condoms, and all to the public free of cost, but still it is not being utilized by the society to reduce the number of kids. Why do you think they don't do it? Okay, so it can vary from one end, the religious reasons, the cultural reasons, the patriarchal nature of the society. Maybe, see, women in the family would be one who doesn't want to give birth to more and more kids because it is their life that is getting affected, right? Or they cannot even take care of their existing children, so they wouldn't want more children. But in a patriarchal society, patriarchal means male dominant society, what happens is that women doesn't have agency, women doesn't have that power to make that choice in the family, so they have to bear more kids, right? And hence they cannot avail all these contraceptive facilities even though it is provided. Okay, so this is an important info you have to keep in mind. Lack of female education. Women's lack of education affects their ability to make decisions about family planning, contraception use, marriage, age, etc. So when it comes to women giving birth, there are so many factors at play here. So what you have to understand is that in a country like India, when the age at which the women gets married, okay, if it gets increased by 3 or 4 years, it itself can bring a steep decline in the number of kids being born in this country. Because see, most of the country, across the country, even though the legal age for marriage is almost 18 or 18 to be precise, they are trying to increase it, it's 18. In most societies, due to religious requirements or cultural practices, women are, or in fact girls are married off at 15 or 16 years of age, and they would be in their reproductive age till 35 or 38 or maximum 40. Okay, so that is almost 25 years, right? 25 years of reproductive age. So if you increase this 15 to 25, okay, just imagine the women are getting married only from 25th year of age. So that is after education, their graduation or PG, or after getting into a job, okay, which is a decent good age. So they only have another 15 more years for reproduction, right? So naturally that will bring down the what do you call, the number of kids being born. So getting female educated is very significant to manage the population. Poverty, how do you think poverty affects population? So it's a very interesting dynamic. None of us, if you haven't studied it, none of us is going to get it intuitively or naturally to us. Why do you think people are poor, people cannot survive by themselves, but then how do they go about increasing the number of, I mean, why are they going to add on more dependence on them, right? because it's because of a very social notion that more kids at home means more working hands, right? More labor, because India was traditionally or predominantly even now an agrarian society, right? Even though the latest data is showing that 40 to 45% of Indian society is still engaged in agriculture. That's a huge number, right? Out of 121 crores, 40%, it's a huge number. So they want more working hands on the farm, right? So if they are poor, they think that they will come out of their poverty by having more farm hands, right? So that is the logic behind poverty and population, how poverty accelerates population in the country. So that is very counterintuitive, but a very important point. Early marriages, which I already discussed, it correlates to higher total fertility, because women who marry earlier have more span of reproductive age, so more chances of kids getting born. Okay, so these were the factors for growth across the world. Everything applies in India. There is nothing, no exception as far as that is concerned. All those factors are relevant as far as India is also concerned. So now we have to know what are the challenges. Okay, what are the challenges because of this rising population or this high amount of population? So one data what you have to keep in mind is population density. So that means the number of people in a square kilometer. In India, that is about 477 persons per square kilometer. That is almost 8 times the rest of the world. Okay, so rest of the world would be like 50 or 60. It's almost it will be 60 approximately. So 8 times is 480. So that is the thing. Rest of the world, it is 60 people per square kilometer. In India, it is 477 per square kilometer. So that is the density. So that means if you take a square kilometer, means just take 1 kilometer square, one. That is 1 square kilometer. How many people live within that space? That is the number we are talking about. So what happens when this population density is very high? It drastically limits per capita resource availability. That means the amount of resources that are available to an individual. When we talk about resources, what all are the resources we're talking about? The natural resources, definitely land, water, all those stuff, air, or non-polluted air. That is the idea. What are the other kind of resources? Employment, health, education, services. These are all resources, right? So these are all resources or services that we take from the society. When there are more people living in a unit area of land, there is competition for this and everyone won't get it. So if you just want to understand, like, just imagine if you have been to metro cities like Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai. If you have been to the traffic there, you will understand the how population affects competition for resources. Your long queues for getting on the buses, or maybe some places like Mumbai they at least form queues, but in other places it's all a heckling match to get into the bus. So this all happens because of higher population. See, the state is providing so many of public buses, but that is not enough for us. That is a problem. But on the contrary, if you have been to Europe, or at least if you have seen it in movies or TVs, there would be a big Volvo bus, like the JNNURM bus that we had, the big AC Volvo bus. When you get in there, you won't have a conductor or any other person. You just have the driver. You pay the money to the driver only. So there would be 4 or 5 people in the bus. Okay, just imagine that AC bus in India, and just imagine 4 or 5 people. In India, if you are seeing 4 or 5 people in that bus, it would be because of extremely high prices for that bus fare. But there, that is not the case. They don't have much people, but we have so much of it. So this is the problem. So everything becomes short, scarce, right? India's and second important challenge that you have to understand from this data of rising population is that India's advantage of an young population would gradually disappear over the next few decades. So this is a very interesting. So I'll take a slight detour here to teach you about that thing. Okay, so this is from a study that was published as part of the economic survey in 2016-17 economic survey. If you want, you can just read it. Very, very interesting economic survey, at least the initial part of it. So in that, the economic survey says that demographically speaking, there are 2 Indias. Okay. So what are these 2 Indias demographically speaking? So let me just try to draw a very bad map, obviously. So there is very little space here. Okay, so I hope this works for India. So what are these 2 Indias demographically speaking? So the India at the center, so that is the Gujarat, Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. Okay, this region is still young, and this region, the demographic dividend in this region is going to come by 2040 or 2050 only. That means this region, the population is currently, the majority of population would be at the age of like 18 or 19 or something, and by 2030 40 they will become 25 35 40 in that proper productive working age group. No, so that is one India. Which is the other India? India from the south, be it Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu. Okay, the bottom part of Maharashtra. This is the other India. Okay, this India is the aging India. Okay, here the average population age would be around 40, 45 even now. So in another 10 years, they are all going to be adults, or sorry, not adults, they are going to be elderly. Okay, so demographically speaking, there are two Indias. One is a very rapidly, young India in the hinterland part of the country, Gujarat, Bihar, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, that area, and the aging India in the south. Okay, so what are the implications of this? That is what you have to know. So I talked about demographic dividend. That is the advantage, the economic advantage that we get from a high population in the working age group. Okay, so that demographic dividend, as far as demographic dividend is concerned, the south is depleting on it. It is ending in the south. It is ending in the southern India, because most of them are passing that productive age and becoming elderly people. Like they're crossing 40, 45, 50. In India, at least that is considered as a very elderly age. They retire by 50, 55. So most of the population are shifting to that. By around 20, end of 20s, like by around 2028, 2030, most of the South India will become transition into elderly population. But in the north, at that time, by 2030, most of the population would be, average age would be like 22 or 24 or something like that. So they are the most productive age group. Okay, so what is the implication for this as a UPSC aspirant or as a future bureaucrat? How do you see that? What is the public policy angle of this information that I just gave you? Okay, so yeah, just think for a second. I'll come to the answer, but just think for yourself how these two Indias from a demographic perspective is relevant for public policies, right? That is the question I want you to have right now. Okay, so I hope you have thought something or the other in your mind. I would want to see that in the chat box. But anyway, beside that, yeah. So what are the implications? So one side is aging, right? So what should be the public policy for this aging South India? There should be more policies, government policies to support the elderly population. There should be more old age centers. There should be more geriatric care in hospitals. What is geriatric care? It is the health care for the old age people. Just write down that word because it's very important. If you put that word exactly, that vocabulary, you will get better marks because you are using the right vocabulary, right? Geriatric care means the health care for the elderly people. So the hospitals, see, currently what are the hospitals focusing on? They are focusing on vaccinations. Currently everything is COVID vaccination, but even once the COVID is over, what will they be focusing on? They would be focusing on mother and child health, reproductive children health, infectious diseases. That is what our public hospitals are known to care about, right? If at all they are caring it well. But in South India, they have to start focusing hugely on geriatric care, because with old age, you are going to get a whole lot of new diseases, right? So the hospital should be ready to treat them. The private hospitals already are ready to treat them, but it's very expensive and the common people of the country won't be able to afford it. So the public hospital should start focusing on it. There should be more law and order security ensured, because just imagine in states like Kerala, there would be, there is a story, like there is not actually a story, it's a reality. In many districts, most of these people are abroad. Their children are abroad, their parents are back at home. They would have a huge two-storied house with one old age couple. Okay, so they are at a huge risk of theft and all that, right? So people, these houses become very vulnerable to attack. So security situation should improve. Those kind of things should be focused in the South India. But in the hinterland India, what should be the public policy focus? It should be on providing them proper health facilities, proper education, proper skilling, to focus more on the human development aspects, right? So we want to convert them, transition them into very productive adults, so that they can continue with the demographic dividend that we are having, right? The demographic dividend started with the South becoming in that young population. South time is getting over. Now the hinterland India should take over. So now, if the government is not providing all this health, education, and skilling in the hinterland region, most of these people, what will happen? They become unproductive individuals. They grow up to become unproductive individuals. They cannot take part in the economy properly. They won't contribute to the economy properly. So what will happen? So they would fall prey to all kinds of divisive tendencies like communalism, casteism, terrorism, name it, left-wing extremism. They can fall prey to all kinds of divisiveness, right? So that is very important from a public policy standpoint. So you can even expect a mains question. What should be the public policy focus, or from a governance angle, what should be the focus in light of this two Indias from a demographic standpoint? Okay. So that is the thing. So this young population would gradually disappear over the next few decades. So that is what we are talking about so far. Coming back, so the demand to deliver quality jobs that are supposed to be environmentally friendly or climate neutral will only grow. So we have to create more and more jobs. That is a huge pressure on the government, right? Poverty and resource scarcity. So more people, less access to resources, more resource scarcity. You don't get fresh water, you don't get clean air, right? You don't get space to build houses. Your houses will cost like 1 crore, 2 crore. Nobody can buy a house anymore, right? That is the situation we are going through because of higher and higher population, right? With a large population, job crisis, climate change, etc., this resource scarcity can become extremely severe in India. Okay, so just anecdotal data. India has 18% of the world's population, but only has 4% of its water resources. You would have heard about water wars, like, right? People in future would be fighting not for land or not for territory, but they would be fighting for water or clean air. That is the situation we are going to face with rising population amid resource scarcity. Okay, so I hope this area is extremely clear. So all those ideas that I talked extra to the content in the slides are very important, and those content is very important to analyze this topic better. Okay, so in the slides I focus more on the data points that you want to write in the answer, but the analysis I've taught in addition to that. Okay, so make sure that you have made some notes about it. So way forward is population has to be controlled, no doubt. Okay, population has to be controlled. So currently, see, I only told you that South India, it is already aging. The North or the hinterland India, they are the young. So who is contributing to this growth in population, right? So we are supposed to be at replacement level, that is 2.1%. Why are we not reaching there? Okay, so even now there are around 6 to 7 states. The state has identified almost 145 districts. We'll come to that. So this is it. Mission Parivar Vikas scheme is there. It will focus on 145 districts in 7 states to accelerate access to high quality family planning services. So what are these family planning services? Those are technology or awareness campaigns or pills to prevent birth of children, right? So that we call as family planning. So it could be about providing various pills, healthy pills. Mostly it is about awareness and behavior change. In public policy, we call it as behavior change communication. You can just write it down. Again, a terminology or a technical term that you can use in your answers. So the government has to focus on behavioral change communication. I told earlier, right? The women are not allowed to access contraceptives because of cultural practices or because of lack of agency of women due to the patriarchal nature of society. So all that has to change, and it is being focused in the Mission Parivar Vikas. Okay, see, just imagine, the word itself is very meaningful, right? The development of family can happen only if the population is restricted. That is the idea, right? So that is the thing. So the bit context, even though India was the first country in the world to implement family planning program, we haven't been that successful, right? But China, on the other hand, has been extremely successful, but with so much of human rights violations and injustices as part of it. Okay, so going forward, what are we focusing on? Incentives, disincentives, education, and awareness. So, as part of it, Mission Parivar Vikas and UP, Uttar Pradesh has brought about a population policy for the state. Normally, states don't come up with population policies, but UP has come up with it. They advocate a two-child policy, try to make contraception more accessible. Okay, they are also creating incentives and disincentives. What are incentives and disincentives? Incentives means if you reduce the population or if you commit to reduce the population, you will get something good out of it. What are the disincentives? If you try to increase the population, still you will get some punishment from it, right? That is the idea of incentives and disincentives when it comes to this. For example, government jobs. One fine day you can see that they will announce that government jobs will go to only those parents or those children from like two kid families. What if they announce it? In China it is like that. China, if there is more than one kid, it's a absolute disaster there, right? They face so much of discrimination and punishment if there is more than one child. So even though we don't advocate that kind of severity or human rights violation, but some kind of a control is in order. And finally, improving the education levels in country, that is the biggest thing. Improving the education, especially women's education or girls education, that will go a long way in putting population under control. Okay, so I hope all those ideas are very clear to you, right? The idea of demographic dividend, how demographically speaking there are two Indias, the aging South India and the young Central India or Hinterland India. What should be the appropriate public policy responses to make maximum out of this demographic situation? Okay, this is the base idea you have to take away from this topic discussion. Okay, so now we move to the poll. So you have 1 minute to answer. So think and answer, eliminate and arrive at the correct answer. So last 3 seconds. Yeah, so a good majority of you have marked it right. Amaljeet, Sumit Arya, Abhijit, Kavyasri, Agil, Kiran, Alish. Okay, congrats to everyone who has got the answer right. Okay, moving on. So let us discuss the question. With reference to world population prospects, recently in news, consider the following statement. It's published by United Nations and provides population estimates and projections. Obviously, we started with that United Nations World Population Prospects Report of 2022. As per the report, the global population is on course to surpass 8 billion this year. Okay, we talked about it. It was 7 billion. Now, the 8th billion is going to happen. It projects that China will be the most populous country in the world by 2050. No, that is not going to happen. India is already surpassing China in 2023. Then how is it going to happen for China? So Veena has asked, what is world population prospect? So prospect means what is the future? What is the future of world population? So they have studied the future of world population and they have compiled a report which can be used by countries of the world to develop appropriate population policies. That is the idea. Okay, Veena. Moving on to the next topic. So the explanation is very much given there. So let us see the question. India is likely to overtake China in terms of population by 2023 rather than 27 as previously predicted. In this context, examine the causes of such a rise and highlight the associated challenges for India. right? So introduction has to be about, like I used to say, you have to set a context using this first statement, right? So India's population, China's population can be compared, and you can write the introduction, and this recent population report also can be quoted there. The body, what all should come there? Causes of population rise, consequences of that rise. Okay, consequences are mostly the challenges. The negative consequences are the challenges of it, right? So consequences or the challenges coming to India. So how do we overcome these challenges? Even though that is not asked, it's a 15 marker, so you should bring the solution also. And finally, conclusion, right? So if you bring the population under control, we can manage the resources better. We can make sure that every individual gets a decent standard of living, right? So every individual gets an opportunity to rise to their fullest potential. Always, always, as a nation, that is the ultimate objective. A nation that can guarantee that to their citizen, that is the proper welfare state. So higher population is always going to curtail that. So conclusion could be always on those lines. If we could achieve it, we could guarantee such a good quality life to our citizens. Okay. Moving on. Implications of unproductive parliamentary sessions. Okay, so this is the context. Context is Parliament has been witnessing disruptions over the issue of inflation and hike in GST raised by opposition parties ever since the start of monsoon session. So this is happening every year, right? Frequent parliamentary disruptions. So we need to have a context here. Before we move further to understand the topic, I want to tell you something with respect to this so that you can analyze this topic in a much better light. Okay. So why are we worried about this disruptions in parliamentary sessions? In order to understand that better or to analyze that better, we have to know what is the ultimate role of parliament, right? What is the ultimate role or the primary responsibility of the parliament? The primary responsibility is lawmaking, right? This is the ultimate and primary responsibility of parliament or legislature, as we call it. What is the secondary responsibility, which is almost equal to the primary? What do you think is the second most important responsibility of the Indian Parliament? Does anyone have an answer for it? Think. So lawmaking, I know every one of you knows. What is the second most important responsibility of the Indian Parliament? So let me see if anyone is giving answer. Imparting justice, checks and balances, executive, somebody is but it's check the executive, Lakshmi, I think so. It has just scrolled up, I couldn't read the name. Yeah, so people have told about it. So the second most important responsibility of Indian Parliament is controlling or making the executive accountable. Accountability of the executive. I am not writing the full words. Making the executive accountable. So these are the two important responsibilities. What is the significance of lawmaking? So everything pertaining to how we as Indian citizens live, make a living, how we access our health, how we access education, how we get a job, what are the rights we have, what will we do if we don't have rights, everything pertaining to an average Indian citizen is decided by the parliament through its lawmaking power, right? So making Aadhaar mandatory for accessing government services. So what is that? So if there is Aadhaar, you will get the services. If there is no Aadhaar, you can't get the service. Who is deciding it? The parliament. It is our representatives out there, right? So that is the lawmaking aspect of it. Or when it comes to COVID vaccination, or during COVID, like there were so many legislations passed for improving the services to the people. So these are all intended to improve the welfare of citizens. That is a lawmaking angle. What is the executive? Making the executive accountable. So in a parliamentary system of government like in India, we have both legislature and executive coming from the same set of people, and the duty of parliament or legislature is to keep the executive accountable always, right? Whether the government is doing a good job. What did the government do during COVID? So the parliament had to question them, like, why was the lockdown imposed overnight? Like, so many of the people has to go back to their states on foot. We have seen all those gruesome images, right? This is parliament making the executive accountable, right? But The question is, for all this to happen, there should be a parliament. I'm saying not the physical parliament, it is always there. The parliament should come in session, right? The parliament should hold meetings. They should discuss about it, right? You just imagine, we have elected these people through our general elections. They have gone there and they are fighting over their own power plays, and they are not focusing time on our welfare, right? So how unfair it is, right? So I'll show you some very interesting numbers, but so keep this perspective in mind, okay? So whenever disruptions happen, these two roles of parliament is getting violated, is getting affected, and it directly affects us, each and every one of us, right? So that is our larger context. So now let us look at the productivity of the parliament. So this is about the very latest data till 2021. The productivity of both houses could not cross 25%, which remained less than 30% last year. That means they would set out to do something, out of that only 20% of work gets done, okay? So if you look at it from a professional standpoint, you are given a job, okay? You are given a job, maybe you don't get so much money out of it, but you get so much power, respect out of it. Out of the 100 jobs that were given to you, you just did 20 of it, okay? Do you think anywhere in the world you can survive in any job like that? You will be immediately thrown out, right? But fortunately or unfortunately for our parliamentarians, it doesn't matter. That's a very significant issue or severe issue we should be thinking about. So even though I am talking about all this with a smile, I'm just being sarcastic about it, right? So these are very severe problems that we as a society should be solving. So look at the thing. So these three colors indicate what are that? Okay, so bill passed by Lok Sabha, bill passed by Rajya Sabha, bill passed by both the houses. So just look at this number. So just look at this diagram. So it is going down. It's doing a deep dive in 2021, right? So everything is going down. Productivity in population percentage, it was 118, 167. That means they set out to do 100 things, they did 167 things. That is the idea. And in 2021, it was just 22, right? The percentage. So that is extremely poor. So from this image, what you can make out is an image something like this. You learn an image like this for your answers. Okay, don't bring all this data. Just do some average percentage data, 110% to 22%. This is enough as far as your answer is concerned. That is how you have to use these kind of graphs. When you see in newspaper, students ask me like, how do we make use of this in the answer writing? Just make a simplistic diagram of it. It should be representative, not accurate or to scale. Okay. So during budget session, okay, again, extremely low percentages can be seen. Okay. And during winter session, again going down, 2021, again, it's a huge deep dive. So productivity as such is going down. Okay. So we have to see the significance of parliamentary debates. Why are parliamentary debates very important? We already saw that. Holding executive accountable, right? The duty of the executive opposition is to hold the government accountable at the floor of the house, right? So like I said, why was COVID initially they are planning to charge money for the vaccination? Because we are always going for universal vaccination in this country. So why are people being fired out of their jobs even during COVID? Should the government impose a moratorium on that? Shouldn't government support private companies so that they don't fire more people, right? So why don't they raise the corporate tax for an interim time so that they can collect more resources and redistribute for the welfare of the poorest sections of the society? So these are the questions which the opposition or the parliament should ask the executive or the government, right? Improve the quality of decisions, right? So if there is no debate, see, we always talk about debates, discussions as the cornerstone or as the pillar of democracy, right? But now it has been replaced, unfortunately, by disruptions. Okay. Now it seems to us that disruptions are unfortunately the founding pillar of Indian democracy, right? So So when there are more people to sit and talk and discuss on something, you naturally tend to get better ideas out of it, right? Nobody is a expert on everything. So when you have more opinions, there are more stakeholders, we get better opinions. So that is being missed. The quality of decisions go down because of disruptions. Raising issues of public interest. So parliamentary debates are the place where all these public interest concerns can be raised by an MP, and when there is disruption, the MP cannot do anything, right? So see, as we know, in India there is a territorial idea of a legislator. Every MP represents a territorial constituency, so he is representing that people in the parliament. So there his or her constituency might have particular problems. So if there are frequent disruptions, how will they raise it? Helping courts to interpret the laws. So the debate helps the courts to interpret various policies. Now, the very important thing. Okay, so we understood the significance of parliament or the functioning of parliament, but why is this disruption happening? Is it something inevitable, right? Do you think all the parliamentary democracies of the world does disruption like this, right? Have you seen frequent images of like how American parliament or the Russian parliament, let's not take Russia in this, or like all the evolved democracies or the advanced democracies like France, Germany, do they all do, or Britain, from where most of our policies come from, do they protest? Do they do these frequent disruptions? Have you ever come across those kind of thing? America, for a short span of time, maybe during Trump presidency, might have witnessed those, but otherwise no, right? Why does it happen in India alone? Okay, so in India, these are some of the major reasons that is being put forward. An unresponsive attitude of the government. So what does this mean? See, so it is known as, or it is being termed as, tyranny of the majority. So again, friends, you can write it down. It will add value to your answer. What is the tyranny of the majority? So democracy is the rule by majority, right? So the majority is assuming so much powers and it is not listening to any other voices. It is acting like a dictator. That is the tyranny. Tyrannical rule means a dictatorial rule, right? So the government is not listening to any other voices. They think they have all the seats. What do you call, democratically speaking, or in terms of numbers, they have all the numbers. So why should they listen to others? That is the government attitude. So that is the cause coming from the government side. So what is the opposition doing here? The opposition is taking so many unprincipled stances. What is unprincipled stance? A stance without, or position without any principle, without any ideal, right? I'll give you the best example. The Congress government has always been about to bring the GST. Okay, so they have been trying to bring it from 2003, 4, 5 years, 2005 onwards. It did happen. The BJP government brought it, but while bringing it, they protested, right? So that is an unprincipled opposition. So when they were in power, they wanted to bring GST, but when the opposition came into power, they just want to oppose it for the sake of opposition, right? It is not that they are actually against GST, but they want to oppose it because the ruling government is bringing it. That is an unprincipled stance. So both ruling as well as the opposition has a role to play, or they have a blame to pick here. Another thing is, the opposition MPs are not consulted while setting the agenda of the house. The opposition MPs, see, they are also MPs end of the day, right? So in a first past the post system that India practices, if you need 200 seats for majority, if you get 201 seat, you can form the government. But what about the 198 or 190 on the other side, right? 198 people, parties who won 198 seats on the other side. Shouldn't they have a role in how the government is run or how the parliament is run? Right? They also should have a role, right? So there has to be an accommodative stance between ruling party and opposition. It should come from both sides. Okay, I'm not saying one has to do the extra job. It should come from both sides. MPs are dissatisfied because they get inadequate time for airing their grievances on issues of their concern. This is what I was saying before. See, each MP have their own territorial interests. They have to win for the next election, right? We always sarcastically say in movies, you elect them for 5 years, they won't come back to their constituency only for next 5 years, right? So even though we sarcastically say that, they always have that in mind. Array, we have to go back and seek votes, so I should do something for my constituency. So they would be trying to raise some issues in the parliament, but nothing gets taken up. partisan role of speaker. So that is one major issue of disruption. So we know in India, speaker comes from the ruling party. There are debates that whether we have to change it or should speaker resign from the ruling party and all that. We are not going there now. But the partisanship from the speaker would act in favor of the ruling party only. Speaker will take out biased decisions in the house, especially when it comes to suspension of MPs, which we have seen in very recent times. Suspension of MPs or MLAs, the speaker always goes against the opposition, right? Even though the ruling party members are also very rude or misbehaving in the house, the speaker always goes out for the opposition. So that again can create protest and disruption. Political parties are not adhering to parliamentary norms. We might think like, are these people supposed to behave like this in parliament, right? We call it as a temple of democracy and all that. Then why do we act like this in a temple, right? So actually there are parliamentary norms, there are code of conduct for MPs and MLAs, so what all they should do and what all they shouldn't do, but unfortunately none of them adhere to it. Televising of parliamentary proceedings, very interesting point. So I don't know how many of you have heard about it. So this is the idea of it. So most of the experts on parliament, they are saying that since the beginning of televising of parliamentary proceedings, that means the telecasting of parliamentary meetings, like we see through Lok Sabha TV, Rajya Sabha TV, you can see the entire parliamentary discussions, right? Since the televising of parliamentary proceedings started, the disruption started going up. Okay, so this is a theory. Why do you think is the reason for it? It's a very interesting reason. I want to see how many of you are able to make a guess of it. Why do you think televising of parliamentary proceedings has increased the rate of disruptions? Let me know. Very good. Kapil, Srishti, very good. They have said to catch attention, yeah, that is actually correct. Publicity, popularity, yeah, that is very much correct. So I'm very happy. Yeah, to show off, Tejaswini, that is exactly right. Yeah, so this is the thing. So this is exactly the theory and the reason. So what the experts are saying that with televising of this proceedings, this is one chance for the MPs or MLAs to show their face in the TV, right? It's a national news, right? See, just imagine if it was not for disruptions. Okay, if you're not making any disruptions, you are just going there, you are presenting good speeches, you are studying a topic in depth, you are taking part in public committees, parliamentary committees, you are being a best parliamentarian. Do you think anyone will know about it? Or I'll put it in another way, you tell me the names of 3 best parliamentarians in this country. There are actually awards for that. Tell me the names of some of the 3 best parliamentarians in the country. I don't think any one of you will be able to know, but you will be able to know who is the person who makes most problems in the house, right? So that is the thing, right? This is how the social media also work, right? Facebook, if there is a gruesome violent image out there, and they also will tell you do not open it, but still you will open it. So that is how human psychology works. So these people, right since the televising started, there is so many disruptions, because the other way to get public attention is very difficult. You will have to study, you will have to take part in discussions, you will have to take part in debates, you have to contribute value to the thing. But disruption is a very easy way of garnering public attention. End of the day, once you go back for election seeking votes, if the constituency feel that he was always there in news, he was such a newsmaker, right? He or she was such a newsmaker. That is how they stay in the public mind. If you stay in the public mind, you will again win the election. So that is the idea. So very counterintuitive point, but very important point. Do make sure that, yeah, bad publicity is still publicity. Very good, very good. Okay. So anti-defection law minimizing the role of legislators. I think we have already talked when in the context of some other topic. With the coming of anti-defection law, the MPs or MLAs do not have any role in the house. They do not have any voice in the house. They are just like they are just the party people. Okay, the party will ask you to vote in support of something, you have to vote. The party will ask you to vote against something, you will have to do that. You are just like a rubber stamp that the party uses to push the party's interest. The individual MPs are not having much role because of anti-defection. Why? Because if you go against the party whip or against what the party is asking you to do, you can be disqualified under 10 schedule, right? Anti-defection provisions. I hope you are aware of it. right? That is it. So anti-defection is minimizing the role of legislatures. And finally, the absence of prompt action against disrupting MPs. So that is again very important. There is no punishment if you are disrupting, if you are a disruptor, sorry. If you are a disruptor in parliament, there is no adequate or proportionate punishment. So nobody cares about it. Okay, the speaker will just say, like when it was Meera Kumar, she just used to say, well, shant ho jao, shant ho jao. So that is not going to change anything, right? So that is a problem, right? So there is no due punishment. If your crime is big or if your wrongdoing is big, there should be an adequate punishment. But that is not there, so nobody cares about it. So these are the various factors for disruption. Very important points. And now, what are the challenges or the impacts that the state has to take? When I say state, it is state in capitals. That is the country I'm speaking about. What is the impact of it? First and foremost, if you look at it, there is so much money being wasted. You just see the deadlock between opposition and centre in parliament over the Pegasus row cost over 133 crore of taxpayers' money. Just imagine, it's a disruption in parliament. So how are they imputing this money? So these MPs and MPs, they have to fly up and down. There is a travel allowance is there. Then each day sitting, there is another allowance. So there is so much money involved in all that. Then one day functioning of parliament itself takes so much of money, right? So there is a huge clerical staff, a secretarial staff for the parliament who runs the operations of the house, right? It's a huge establishment, almost 550 MPs and all those things. So it's almost 133 crore of money lost when these people are disrupting. Another issue is parties supporting wrongdoing of members. So the parties are also interested in that only. They just want public attention, right? So as somebody said, there is nothing like bad publicity. Every publicity is good only, right? So that is the problem. Limited working days. So this is another challenge to come out of this problem. So successive governments and opposition or experts have time and again said you have to give more number of working days, right? So all of us go to a job, we work almost like 250, 300 days, and these people just do 50 days, 30 days in a year. I mean, that is not going to work, right? So there has to be an increasing number of working days. Avoiding debate on contentious issues. So this is again yet another challenge. When a contentious issue is raised by a member, the government will avoid debate on such. See, this is actually a strategy. Okay, my sense is that there could be some backhand dealings and all that. See, I'm just hypothesizing. Okay, I'm not blaming anyone. So obviously, you just imagine the ruling party doesn't want to take up a serious issue. So the ruling party has someone in the opposition, at least who is in fair. They have a decent agreement with the one person in the opposition. So they can ask that person to create a disruption in the parliament, and the house will be called off. The session will be called off. The ruling government doesn't have to take up the matter for discussion, right? So all kinds of corruption would happen when this is disruptions are going on, right? And finally, it compromises the idea of representative democracy. Nothing is getting represented. We have umpteen number of money bills that are getting passed without any debate and discussion. The idea of money bill giving entire power given to Lok Sabha was to reflect our will, because the Lok Sabha only houses the direct representatives from the people, and we gave them ultimate power over those matters. So what did they do with that power? They just misused it, and they don't discuss any money bill. Okay, so that is a problem. That is a problem we are faced with. But it cannot go like this for long, because it creates a lot of troubles for the country. We still have a lot of problems to be solved in this country, right? The poverty, the gender gap, the inclusion of the weaker sections, the uplifting of SC, ST, OBC communities, minority communities. There is so much work to be done, and how can you be so slack and so inserious about their job? Okay, so first of all, there has to be empowering mechanism to empower the parliament. Its processes has to be strengthened. It shouldn't be that easy to disrupt the parliament, right? Or if at all someone disrupts it intentionally, there should be some punishment for it. So that should be there. Code of conduct for parliamentarians should have to be strictly enforced, right? There could be a committee. Already there is a committee on a code of conduct and all that. So there has to be more power to that committee. increasing the working days of parliament. This is a very good suggestion. So unfortunately the scenario would be, even if we increase from 80 to 150, they might spend another 70 days disrupting. So if that is the scenario, increasing working days is not going to change anything, but at least let us hope that they won't disrupt all the entire thing. Okay, in for example, average number of sitting days in US is 140, UK it is 150, in India it is 57 days. You just imagine, in the one of the most developed countries of the world and another country which is equally richer, they sit for more hours debating the problems of that country than an extremely poor nation like ours, right? I'm saying when we are poorer compared to these nations, we are poorer compared to them. So we should be sitting, we should be acting more on our problems, but we sat less on our problems, right? So the National Commission to review the working of the constitution had recommended that Lok Sabha should have at least 120 sittings in a year and Rajya Sabha should have 100 sittings. So NCRWC, or the Venkatachalaya Commission, so it was a very, very exemplary commission. They have produced so wonderful reports. So so this sittings recommendation can be taken up seriously. Okay. Another thing is fixing the schedule. The parliamentary schedule is decided by the government, which can be changed if there is some problems. If the government feels that, if we have a session tomorrow, these people are going to make a mess out of it, there will be so much of public backlash, so let us call off the session. Okay, so that is possible for the government as of now. So that should be avoided. So in order to fix that, a calendar of sittings should be announced at the beginning of each year with limited flexibility, right? So they have to announce 1 year when will the sittings will be there. So based on that, they have to hold the sittings then. No. Second is that uh, the House should be allowed to summon if a significant minority of members given a written notice. So that is another thing. The ruling government keeps on postponing holding sessions. They just pass bill through ordinances. They don't want to bring the House in session. So especially during COVID times, we have witnessed that. So instead of that, the opposition or the other members of the House, a significant number of members, gives a written request to the Speaker or to the President. There should be a mechanism to hold the session. Currently, only the ruling government can initiate proceedings for that. Then there should be a guaranteed time for the opposition. In Britain, they allocate 20 days a year when the agenda is decided by the opposition. So actually, that should be the right way. No? So when you say the majority rule, see, the issue with the first part of post system we already told. So the ruling government might have 151 seats, the failed other side would have 149 seats. So these 49 seats also should be represented, right? Those are the voice of those 49 districts of this country, or 49% of the people in this country. That also need to be respected in a democracy, right? And developing something known as parliamentary disruption index. So that is a metric to identify the frequent disruptors. They should be punished and things like that. Okay. So I think it is very evidently clear what is the situation, why does it matter to us that disruption is happening, what are the causes or reasons for disruption, and how do we overcome it. It's a very simple and straightforward structure for this content, but very important topic. Okay, very important from a main standpoint. Okay. Moving on. So let us see the second question. Let us set the second question. So you have 1 minute. So last 17 seconds. Okay, so a good overwhelming majority of you have got the right answer. So the correct answer is A, 1 and 2. So Amaljit, Kavyasri, I'm seeing the same names, Agil Mundra, Kiranar, Ujisri, Anshika, Saini, Shivanki Patel. Good, good, good. Very good. So, which of the following measures can be taken to improve the productivity of parliamentary debates? Enforcing code of conduct? Yes. Fixing schedule? We already saw it. Decreasing the working days? No, it will go against, right? So that is wrong. So all with 3 gets eliminated. 1 A is the answer. Okay. So moving on. So you can just see the explanation. Third is the elusiveness of gender equality. The Global Gender Gap Index has been released, placed India at the very bottom. So this is the rank 135 out of 146. Okay. Out of the 146 countries being measured for it, India ranks 135 in the gender gap index. So basically means the gap between the male and female. That is what they are calculating through different measures, social, political, economic, etc. But it is the gap between the male and female, or the man and the woman, or the boy and the girl. Okay, that gap is what we are talking about. India ranks poorer than its immediate South Asian neighbors like Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bhutan. Okay, so it's never a matter of pride. Okay, so we'll just look at the findings and then we'll try to understand what this gender equality is and all those. I'll give you a broad context, or before going there, I'll give you the context. I think that is better. So, what is this gender equality? Okay, so first of all, whenever this debate, so once you have started with this UPSC preparation, all of you might tend to get into debates with your family or your WhatsApp family groups and all that. No, like, because someone will say something bad on all these ideas, and you started to imbibe the spirit of constitution or values of constitution, and you get into a debate. Okay, so what happens is that, so when somebody speaks about against patriarchy or male dominance, or need for more women equality, so they might say, how can woman ever be equal to man? Man is different, woman is different, so there can't be no equality. So what is that? That is actually a diversion from the actual topic. Nobody is questioning anyone that man is different and women is different. So we are not talking about biological differences. Yes, all of us agree. Everyone who has common sense know that man and woman are different biologically speaking. But the question is, should these biological differences, which are totally inconsequential, should it determine their social, political, and economic situation? That is the question. Okay, so whenever in future when you try to have this debate, you should immediately correct your opposition. I'm assuming that you are on the correct side of the debate. Okay, so you should always bring the question right. So the question is never that women and men are going to be equal. They will say, okay, our Olympics 100-meter men gold medal is 9.8, women is 12.5 seconds. I am saying 9.8 seconds, 12.5 seconds. How can man and woman be equal? Cricket team, compare cricket team of men and women, compare football team of men and women, right? So this is not what we are speaking about. This all comes from physical appearances or physical manifestations and things like that. We don't have any question on that. Okay, physically there are differences, biologically there are differences. The question is, should it lead to economic differences to the point that if there are 2 kids in a family, a boy and a girl, the boy gets to go to the school, the girl do not go to the school. The boy gets to go outside their home or maybe outside their district or state for jobs, the women does not get to go, right? The boy gets to decide when he can marry or whom he can marry. The women will be married off by 15 or 16 years of age. Okay, so these are all positive things and these are all negative things, and you see the divergence, right? So this is the divergence. So that is why I actually drew it like this. So the boy, when it become a man or adult, they're constantly going up. At least if they do their own bit, they will constantly go up. But women, despite their efforts to excel in their life, they are constantly brought down. I am not saying this is the 100% scenario, okay, but overall, on an average, in the Indian situation, this is true. Okay, maybe in none of your families it may be true, but there are families, there are umpteen number of families in India where this scenario is true. This divergence, this is the gap we are talking about, right? Okay, so that is about the economic situation. Similarly, at a social level, women do not have any voice when it comes to their own life or the family life, right? They're not respected in the society. People don't think that they can take serious decisions. They can become lawmakers or they can become bureaucrats. People don't believe that, right? That is about the social status. What about the political standing? So very rarely do we have women parliamentarians or women legislators. Is it because women don't have the inherent skill to do that? No, it is because they don't have the opportunity. They are not allowed to come there, right? So this is the economic, social, and political manifestations, and this is what you have to keep in mind. And with this, we will look into the topic. Okay. So what are the findings of the Global Gender Gap Index? First of all, you have to know that it is released by World Economic Forum. Very important from a prelim standpoint, especially all the reports of World Economic Forum, World Bank, and to some extent IMF. You can basically by heart it. Extremely important from prelim standpoint. So what the report says is that it will take another 132 years to close the global gender gap at the current rate. That means if you are going like this, see currently this is the gap between men and women. Just assuming this is the gap. It will take another 132 years. 132 years to reduce this gap. Isn't it injustice, or isn't it very unjust? For the next 132 years, the disparities between men and women that we are seeing around will continue. That is the report saying. Right? So it's a very unjust scenario. It's something like, so now when it comes to gender, I'm assuming that everyone will have two opinions. So I'll give an example where you won't have two opinions. Okay, so let me tell you that for the next 130, it's just a hypothetical, it's just an imaginary scenario. Just assume there is slavery in India. Okay, just assume that for the next 132 years the slavery will continue like this. After 132 years it will reduce. Okay, just imagine. Do you think anyone of you think that it's an unjust scenario, right? For the next 132 years, the life of women in our country and around the world, they won't have full opportunities to excel in their life, not because of their problem, it is because of the society's problem, right? So that is the extent of injustice this ranking or this gender gap index shows to us. Okay. India's overall rank has improved slightly, but it is, I mean, I'm saying we shouldn't be happy at all about it. There could be media reports saying, hey, we have improved, but just see, it's abysmal. Even if we have improved, it is not good enough. That is the point we are talking about. It is never good enough. Okay. India has fared better in the political empowerment aspect, but has been ranked poorly in other sub-indices such as health and survival, educational attainment, economic participation, and opportunity. Okay, so in the political angle it is better, but in the social and economic scenario it is still extremely poor. If you look at political empowerment, our rank is 48. Educational attainment rank is 107. Economic participation and opportunity is 143. See, there are only 146 people out there. In health and survival, we are at the last rank. Okay, so this is the scenario. I just want this to sink into your mind, right? So we are speaking about 21st century. We are talking about 2022. So there's a report released in 2022. India is the last ranked country when it comes to women's health and survival. India is the 143rd ranked country when it comes to economic participation and opportunity. See, almost 48% of Indian population is women. I don't know whether the number is exact, but approximately 48% of Indian population is women. This 48% of people, they have least access to economic participation and opportunity. How are you planning to make this $5 trillion, $10 trillion economy and all that? Right? I think if we just improve this scenario, if we just improve the economic opportunities for women, that itself will raise our economy like no other thing. Like we shouldn't be focusing so much on FDI or other kind of things. Instead, we should focus on greater women participation in economy. That itself could take us much forward, right? Okay, so that is the broad scenario. So coming to gender equality, this is something we already saw. People of all genders have equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. So far, I talked only about man and women, but that is not correct in the present scenario. So there are different genders, right? So when we talk about gender equality, we talk about all the genders, right? But from a public policy standpoint, women is still the major non-man gender, right? So still the majority is from the women folk. So from a public policy standpoint, it is totally fine if we focus more on the women aspect, because the rest of them are very less in number. It means that individuals from all genders have equal conditions, treatment, and opportunities for realizing their full potential, human rights, dignity, and opportunities to contribute to social, economic, cultural, and political development. Right? Where gender inequality exists, it is generally women who are excluded or disadvantaged in relation to decision making, access to economic and social resources. Right? So this is the overall scenario. Gender equality means lack of all these challenges. So this is just a visual cue for that. What are the reasons for gender inequality? See, first of all, we could start from here, I guess. Patriarchal setup in Indian society, I think that would be the major reason. See, when it comes to all these important, significant ideas like gender justice and all that, the stories that we tell ourselves matter a lot. Okay, so let me give it let me try to explain it by giving another example. So when we talk of America, we talk about opportunities, we talk about the great American dream, right? What is this great American dream? Great American dream is that whoever comes to America or whoever goes to America, if he or she is willing to put their best possible efforts, they can improve their well-being, they can excel, or they can rise up to a higher social economic standing. And America provides that opportunity to everyone who reaches the shores of that land. That is the great American dream. That is a story that Americans tell themselves all throughout, right? All of you would have heard about it, right? Great American dream. See, you would have many friends while in college who would have immediately after graduation would have planned to go to America, would have actually gone to America, written GRE or GMAT, have gone to America. So why does it happen? It is not because we know that American government has an economic policy that support immigrants. Nothing like that. We don't know about the legislation there. We don't know about the details of the economic situation there. But we know this story, and this story seems to be true to us because it has worked for everyone else that we know, right? So that story works. It just spreads out, right? So that is a story Americans tell themselves. What is the story Indians tell ourselves, right? We talk about the male kid, right? So the male kid is all powerful, it can do wonders. So you invest everything in the male kid, you give him health, education, skills, so he'll take care of everyone else. And look at the situation of the male kids, or all these male kids when they've grown up, where they have reached, right? They are the number one problem makers for the country, right? So all of this is coming from this patriarchal notion, or that male is superior to female. That is such a, what you call, the biggest unscientific idea that you can ever come across, right? So that is a problem with the stories we are telling ourselves. So we need to change that. And even so, from this story, everything comes, right? Everything else, if you look at the question of gender equality, everything comes as a consequence of this story we are telling ourselves. Okay, we assume that men are superior to women. We assume that women are inferior to men. Men can have superpowers. So we invest in men, so they get health, they get education, they could go to engineering colleges, medical colleges. I'm not saying women are not going or girls are not going. I'm saying again about the average. The opportunities for men far outweigh that of women. So education becomes an issue, employment becomes an issue, medical care becomes an issue. See, everything comes from this single factor. this is another action, lack of bodily autonomy for women. Women doesn't have rights over their own bodies. That means whom they have to marry, like what should they do with their body, what dress they should wear, at what time they should come back home. Everything is decided by another person, external person, mostly a male, right? Lack of religious freedom, right? Lack of awareness among women itself about their rights and their abilities. And finally, poverty. So again, how does poverty matters? See, in a poor family, the family has very little resources. Every family, even if they are poor, they want to change their scenario, they want to change their status. Whom will they invest? Okay, they'll think there is a boy and there is a girl. Okay, girl is never going to work. Why? Because that is a story we are telling ourselves. Okay, let us invest in the boy. So poverty again feeds on the patriarchy loop, right? So this is the problem, right? So these are the various factors for gender inequality. So what are the consequences of it? So it should have some consequences, no? On the society, it affects everyone, be it children, be it young people, be it adults, be it older people. Everyone is taking the cost of it. They are suffering because of it. What happens with children? Because of gender stereotyping, it affects children's sense of self. What is gender stereotyping? That means okay, I'll put it through an example. Okay, so it says like boys shouldn't cry. Okay, girls should play with dolls, or girls should play with kitchen utensils. Boys should play with fast cars. Boys should play with what you call maybe guns, right? So these are all gender stereotypes. What a boy should be, what a girl should be. Girl shouldn't dress like this. Girl shouldn't go out like this. Girl shouldn't mingle with other boys. So these are all ideas or stereotypes. The stereotypes are never true. They are just some patterns. Okay, so they affect a children's sense of self. So when these girl children are always told about this, they started doubting. They will start doubting. Okay, so will there be some reason when everyone see it's obviously most at the time it will be your parents only saying this, no? So you shouldn't do this, you cannot do that. If you want to start learning to ride a motorcycle, no, girls in our family don't do that. Okay, then okay, maybe we don't have the ability to ride a motorcycle. So this will be told to you 10 times by all family members around you. And in future, in college or something, when another guy would say, "Arey, what can you do? You can't even ride a motorcycle." Then, okay, yeah, it's true. So within the family, this is the feedback you get. Outside the family, from the larger society, this is the feedback you get. Then how can you, end of the day, start riding a motorbike? Right? Because there is a psychological barrier for it. I'll give you the best example. All of you know, I mean, this is something I have seen in a WhatsApp forward only. Pardon me for saying that. So you have seen elephants, right? Elephants that are being used in temple parades and all that. Have you seen how the elephants are controlled by the mahout? I hope all of you are coming from places there are elephants. I hope it exists all over India. I'm not sure about it. So, but elephant is normally controlled by a small stick, like a very small stick. It will be placed behind the ear of the elephant. The elephant stays in place for hours because the elephant feels that small chotu stick is more powerful than the elephant who can just bring down buildings or trees and things like that. Okay, so that is a psychological barrier. So I would say, see, the scenario of girls in India is something like that. All these stories are like that small stick which have created a barrier on the girl children of this country, right? So that is the problem with all this stereotyping. So young people, gender stereotypes affect their study choices. Girls don't become doctor, they become nurses. Girls don't do mechanical engineering, they go for something else. Okay, girls don't go abroad for higher studies, they have to stay back, right? So all opportunities are gone. At the same time, the guy doesn't have any problem. The only problem is he has to study, right? That is a different problem altogether. But that is the only challenge they face. They don't have any barriers from the society, right? That is what we are talking about. Then finally, if you become adults, across the world, the gender pay gap, it's, maximum close is 75%. If the guy get 1 lakh, the women might get 75,000 for the same job, exact same job. right? When you think about, you might, oh boy, this guy is doing much bigger job, he's so smart, efficient. So you have to imagine this money is being paid by a corporate company. Do you think the corporate company just will give more money to the guy just like that? No, it is never giving more money to the guy, it is just giving less money to the women. That is the scenario. The guy gets paid according to his work, and the women get paid much less than actually what she deserves. That is what we are witnessing in India. Older people, women are unable to assert land rights or their property rights. So often they are at risk of homelessness, right? You have heard about the Vrindavan widows and all that. So even men are affected. Even men are not free from all of this. They are affected by traditional stereotypes. The men needs to feel masculine, like they can't cry in the public. And since men can't cry in the public, the men is sitting on a like emotional mountain all the time. And if somebody just pricks on him, he just goes bombastic, right? So there is so much issues of mental health challenges among men also, right? Because of this patriarchal society. So this patriarchal society is not benefiting either, right? It might be benefiting some men, obviously, that is why it's continuing, but a good percentage of the society gets affected by it. Gender diverse people, so people who do not classify or belong to either of these genders, they are extremely closeted. They cannot come out into the society as they are, right? Because they will be judged and they will be excluded. Women with disabilities, they are more likely to be unemployed and all that. Okay, so it's very clear the societal implications. Effect on the economy. So this particular report says that gender inequality has cost the world $70 trillion. India is trying to become a $5 trillion economy. Just imagine a huge country like India is trying to become a $5 trillion economy. And since 1990, we have wasted almost $70 trillion just because of our gender gaps. And it will take 257 years to close the gap at the current rate. No wonder. So this is what I said. Women in India represent 48% of their population. Their contribution to economy is around only 17% of GDP compared to 40% in China. So this is exactly what I was telling about. So you don't focus, you don't worry so much about FDI and all these foreign investors. You just take care of your own girls. You can become $1 trillion or whatever you want to become, because that is what China has done, right? As per the report, The Power of Parity by McKinsey, Indian GDP could increase by 60% if the gender gap is filled by 2025. Come on, why don't we do that, right? So because the story is so strong, it is very difficult to change it. That is why we need consistent efforts in retelling the story, right? It has to, there has to be a lot happening through the educational system, right from the birth. This gender equal values or gender just values should be taught to, at least this generation is gone. Our old generation is totally gone. Don't even pin any hopes on it. At least let us try to salvage our future generation. Let us prevent them from becoming gender unjust or gender unjust, right? As per the Global Gender Gap Index, gender parity in the labor force stood at 62.9%. It is the lowest. So out of 100, there would be 62 male and 38 female. So that is the minimum. That is the minimum that we have brought so far. And as per the World Bank data, the female labor participation rate in India had fallen to 20.3% in 2029 from more than 26%. So this could be attributable largely to the demonetization. Post demonetization, so many women friendly jobs were lost. So partly it could be because of that. Okay. But Bangladesh is doing a much better job. Sri Lanka is... See, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, especially Bangladesh, it's an excellent example of women empowerment. It started investing in the women rights in 1990s through the Grameen Bank initiative of Mohammad Yunus and through a slew of government schemes focusing on the women. When they gave land to the people, they gave to the women. When they started investing, providing health facilities, they gave it to the woman, the mother first. When they started educating the mother first. Right? Whatever their focus is, they will take the women into account. This is something what Kerala also does through its Kudumbashree. So in Kerala, whatever happens, whatever welfare scheme is being pushed from the government to the public, it will go only through the Kudumbashree, right? So because that everywhere women is the focal point of attention, right? So if they want to give some some livelihood promotion, they'll train the women. If they want to give some skilling initiative, they'll train the women. If they want to give loans to start micro or medium, small MSMEs, they will give it to women, right? This is what is happening in Kerala. This is exactly what is happening in Bangladesh also. And we know the result, right? Both Bangladesh and Kerala has succeeded well in that. And the effect on politics, sorry, low participation, women account for half of the population, but only 14% representation in the Lok Sabha. Very poor. And what will happen when women are poorly represented? So this is another point that you have to keep in mind. Studies after studies have shown that women in lawmaking or women in policy making and men in policy making have different priorities. Okay. So let us, about men, we already know. We have seen how they have ruined the countries and economies of the world. Let us talk about what are the priorities of the women. When women is in policy making, when I mean policy making, when women become ministers, women become bureaucrats, women become lawmakers at the parliament or state legislature, what are their focus areas? They focus on health. They focus on education. They focus on starting small businesses, right? Because they can see from their own standpoint, they know what it takes to build a family, right? They're not thinking about a smart city. They're thinking about a small family. The basic unit of our society is a family. They are thinking about how to improve that family. And if you improve that family, naturally the economy, the country, everything gets developed. So it's a bottom-up approach. This is what women do. This is what women policy makers do. Okay. So this is the study. So there are so many studies. So this is one study I am quoting here. Women's leadership and policy decisions, evidence from a nationwide randomized experiment in 2001 has concluded that a policymaker's gender does influence policy decision. So this is what I was saying. Women tend to give more importance to education and health, two of the two fundamental tenets of sustainable growth. Through families, you build the community. Through communities, you build the state, and through that, you build the nation. So if you know the motto of Kudumbasri, this is the motto of Kudumbasri. So if anyone who hasn't heard about it, Kudumbasri is a poverty alleviation scheme of the Kerala state government. It focuses on empowering women. Okay, and through that to alleviate poverty. So this is the motto of Kudumbasri. I have already told in a way back class. Develop the community by developing, sorry, that's other way. Okay, develop the family or empower the family by empowering the women, empower the society by empowering the family, right? So this is the bottom of my story. First you focus on the women, from there the family, from the family the community, from the community the nation. This is the motto itself of Kudumbasri, right? So that is something we should also bring into the policy making. Non-attaining of SDGs. So if you want any more example on this regard, let me tell you something. So if you invest money in women's education, okay, do you know what all studies have shown? I'm not quoting all the studies, but I'll just say the consequences. If you invest in women's education, if women are educated, do you know what all will happen? Women will primarily focus on the age at which she will get married. Okay, she's not willing to get married at 18 or 19. She will get married mostly only after getting a job. So that is 22, 23 or 25. So the number of children she will bear is less. That means the population gets controlled. Okay, so just imagine the consequence of women education. Okay, first thing. Secondly, since she is educated, she knows before giving birth to a child, there has to be a proper planning about it. And if at all they are planning to have a child, what should be the nutrition or health that the women should look while the child is inside her. Okay, so prenatal care, proper food, proper nutrition, proper medicines, proper vaccinations, everything has to be followed. Once the child is born, she even then knows how to access the doctor, reach out to the doctor, take care of the child. Okay, and then she focuses on the children's health and education. Entirety of her focus falls on that. So what happens? The next generation becomes better. The next generation, girl or the boy, becomes better off, right? Their health, their education, their skilling improves. So through women, the population gets controlled, or investing in education of women, the population gets controlled. That itself is a good thing. The next generation gets improved. They come out of poverty. They become productive individuals in the economy. Okay, so this is the importance of investing in women. So these are some of the slides just about the constitutional provisions. So I'm not detailing on anything. So these are all things that you know. Article 14, equality before law, everyone should be treated like that. 15 and 16 prohibits discrimination based on gender. 39, equal rights and equal pay for men and women. 42, humane and working conditions, maternity relief for women. These are the direct constitutional provisions. So what are the legal provisions? There is an Equal Remuneration Act, there is a Dowry Prohibition Act, sexual harassment of women at workplace, very important, right? Maternity Benefit Act, so recently there was amendments to it, which you should be looking at. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, recently we have discussed in a current affairs webinar session, very important, and all these provisions. Then there are various schemes for education, like scheme for adolescent girls. So earlier there was a scheme called Sabala. Then Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign, declining child sex ratio. Health, there is Pradhan Mantri Madru Vandana Yojana, cash incentives for improved health and nutrition to pregnant and nursing mothers. So this is what I said. The next generation, we are investing in the next generation, right? We are not investing on this mother. We are investing on the generation that is coming out of the mother. National Nutrition Mission, nutritional status of pregnant women and lactating mothers. Lactating mothers are women who feed their kids, right? Who are in that stage of breastfeeding their kids. Reducing anemia among women along with children. So there are umpteen number of schemes at the governmental level. So you don't have to, from this topic, see all of these schemes you will be learning eventually. You don't have to learn it in one go. It's kind of difficult also to remember all that. So here I have just listed it out. Okay, that is why I'm just running through it. I have just listed it out. So in future, when you study each of these schemes in a different context, you will come to know it much better, right? To improve social scenario, National Crash Scheme for Working Mothers, Rashtriya Mahila Kosh to provide microfinance services. So what is this microfinance services? Giving small amount of money as loans, 5,000, 10,000 like that, not lakhs or crores. Ujjwala Yojana, clean cooking fuel, LPG, right? To improve their economic participation, Mahila eHeart, direct online marketing platform that leverages technology to support women entrepreneurs. Stand Up India, to create a startup or to create a new company. Female entrepreneurship, facilitating bank loans ranging from 10 lakh and 1 crore, right? So there should be at least one SC/ST borrower, one woman per borrower per bank branch. So they have made kind of reservations or special allocations or priority lending for women. Okay, these are all the schemes. Skill development, support to training and employment program of women. And in political system, 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment, government or the Constitution has reserved 33% of the seats in the PRIs and urban local bodies to mainstream political leadership of women. Okay, so this is the way forward. What is the way forward for improving the women scenario? Gender mainstreaming. So everywhere the gender has to be a focus, because all sections of the society, in all government schemes, everywhere gender faces discrimination because of the stories we talked about in the beginning. No, we talk about a story that is predominantly patriarchal. So everyone naturally assumes that women are incapable of doing something. So we have to change that stories. For that, we need to mainstream the gender problems. We need to mainstream the problems faced by women. We need to mainstream the challenges women face. We need to mainstream the requirements of women, and we need to create schemes that specifically cater to that. That is gender mainstreaming. Capacity building and awareness generation. Okay, so again it is to change that behavior I talked about earlier, behavior change communication. Gender budgeting. What is gender budgeting? That is budgeting from a gender angle. I'll give you one beautiful example. Okay, gender budgeting means, just imagine we have a drinking water mission, right? We have a drinking water mission. The central government, we want to bring piped drinking water to all the families. But before reaching all the families, they would first try to reach all the communities, all the 5 to 10 houses or 100 houses in one unit or something like that. First, they will bring water tie-up till there. From there, they will, in the next phase, they might take it to the family. So, how do we decide the location of the water tap? Okay, the public water tap I am speaking about. What are the criteria? Where should we place the water tap? Okay. So, as a conscientious or as a sensible public servant, or if you are in charge of designing that policy, whom will you ask with respect to locating the water tap? Okay, so if you want to, okay, you are going to a particular village, okay, you identified this village do not have any water taps, so we have to bring the water tap here as part of this government scheme. You are the bureaucrat in charge of it, so you have to decide a place to locate it. How will you decide, or rather who will you ask? Let me see, any one of you is giving me the right answer. Okay, so everyone is saying women. Why do you think women? Because they carry the load. Exactly correct. Tehrim has said that. Yeah, so that is correct. In India, in this predominantly patriarchal society, who carries water? Like, I'm not talking about places or societies or families where you get water when you turn the tap on. I'm talking about places where you have to walk kilometers and kilometers to get 20 liters or 30 liters of drinking water. Okay, so who goes and pick it up? The women. And maybe who accompanies her? The girl child, right? So that is a scenario. We have seen umpteen images of this, right? We have seen so many images. So who should decide where the tap should be located? Ideally, it should be the stakeholder, that is the women, right? See, then you can ask me, sir, you are also promoting patriarchy, you are also assuming that women are going and taking water, that is why you are doing this. No, the problem is, see, this patriarchy is not going to go overnight. Until then, we have to look after the safety of women at least, right? Okay, so women is going to take water for next 20 years in most parts of India, because the patriarchy will take generations to change. But who will take care of the safety of these women until then? That is the government's responsibility, right? So this is the gender budgeting. So what is the gender budgeting angle there? So maybe they will have to extend the pipeline so that women can take water from a safe space. Okay, maybe they will allocate additional 50,000 to put a street lamp there so that women can go at night and pick the water, right? That is gender budgeting. That is budgeting through the prism of women, budgeting through the prism or lens of women, or women friendly budgeting, you can call it. Okay, so reservation in parliament, it is obvious. Skilling and reskilling, making education gender sensitive, ending gender based violence. I think these are all things that you already know, right? So India's battle for gender parity, it's a huge challenge. You have to work at it. So did you know that Iceland is the most gender neutral nation in the world? It has been named as the most gender neutral country, topping this particular report. This is the 12th time that Iceland has been topping that report. So what are the particular policies that helped Iceland to be at the top of the gender gap report? Equal Status and Equal Rights for Men and Women Act. The name sounds very less catchy compared to India. In India, if we are naming it, we would learn it, we'll bring some very catchy name, but nothing will happen. But there, the name is not that catchy, but the results have happened. The outcomes are there. Equal pay for equal work is mandatory, right? There is no question on it. If you don't pay it, it's the company's problem. Companies' boards must include at least 40% women, increasing economic participation. Best parental leave policy in the world. Parents split the time of leave equally to ensure children grow up. So some of my friends who are abroad in Finland, in Norway and all, they say that there is an idea of this paternity leave. In India also, we have started discussions on it. So when a new kid is born in India, so far only maternity leave was there. The mother could take leave. Now, I mean, in European nations, the father also could take leave, because why not? The raising a kid is the joint responsibility of both the parents, right? And finally, the country has a ministry on gender inequality, whereas in India we have ministers and MPs who utter foolishness on gender equality, right? Or they say gender unjust comments. That is the difference between Iceland and India as we know it. So moving to the next question. So do it quickly, friends. Okay, again, most of you have given the right answer. So let us discuss with reference to the report. It is published by World Economic Forum, correct? India has been ranked 135 out of 146, correct? In the health and survival parameter, India is ranked last among all the countries, correct? So all are correct. So D. So despite a slew of government initiatives, gender equality in India is still elusive. In light of the above statement, analyze the reasons and effects of gender inequality in India. Okay, so introduction should be, you should contrast these two ideas. There is so much of government initiatives, but still gender equality is still elusive, or the gender gap still persisting. So you could take a data like, so if you take the last 10 years, the government has been spending so much for gender budgeting, but still the rank is still there. So that is a contrast. It gives an evaluator a better sense that you have understood the question right. So once you give that intro, the body should be the reasons for gender equality or inequality, sorry. So when you analyze it, you have to establish it, giving examples, right? That is the idea of analysis, like how we are doing it, no? So this is the scenario, this is why it is happening, and these are the examples of it. That is a proper analysis of it. So give the reasons or causes and the consequences. So we have discussed it thoroughly. You can learn it from the slide. So when you are saying reasons and consequences, so these are all about gender inequality, right? So naturally, this is not the scenario we want. We want to change the situation. So we briefly mentioned solution also. So if there is no space, you can just draw a diagram and just write the solution like this. Don't, when the solution is not directly asked, don't waste so much space and time for it. Just do a diagram just to represent it there and go for the conclusion. Okay. Moving on to the second last topic, inequalities in school education. So here also I want to convey an idea. So the topic as such, it is it's a bit on the factual side. So I want to give you an analysis beyond the topic so that you can understand the topic better. Okay. Why education, right? Why do we need to focus on education? Okay, in a country like India, why is education important, or why is access to education important? Why is inequality in access to education a big problem, right? So what do you think is education important to Indian society or India in general? So we know to get better jobs, better lives. Okay, that is good. Okay, human capital. Srishti is saying human capital, correct? It's a way out of poverty. Karthikya, very wonderful answer. See, in India, okay, I'll put it in another way. So how can people come out of poverty, or what is the way for economic growth in the world? Okay, so one way is, if you have money, you can make more money. Okay, so that is having financial capital. You already have money, right? Just imagine Ambani. Okay, Ambani is the best scenario. He born into, like, he was born with a silver spoon, as we say it, right? He had money, he made it multiples, he multiplied that money. Okay, big deal, right? It's a big deal, but still he had something to work on. So he had financial capital, so he worked on it. But what about the majority of Indians? Okay, all the other Indians who doesn't have money when they are born with, or when they are born in poverty. Add to this poverty additional layers of being to a low caste, being born a woman or a girl child. Okay, so what will happen then? The burden increases, right? It becomes extremely difficult to escape it. So what is one sure short way for poor, desperate Indians to escape poverty, or to come out of their poverty, to come out of their what do you call desperate life? It is education, right? So this is the standpoint from which a bureaucrat or a future bureaucrat should view the question of education. So this is how we are also going to look at it. Okay, so there is the Amartya Sen's idea of entitlement, or I'll put it in another way. Amartya Sen's idea of development as freedom. Okay, it is actually a book of his also. Very important from a UPSC point. UPSC has asked direct question on this view of Amartya Sen. Okay, so development as freedom. Okay, so what is Amartya Sen speaking when he says development as freedom? So Amartya Sen says that for us to go out in the society, to participate in the economy, and to make better lives out of it, we need to have some freedom, right? Or we should not have certain unfreedoms. Okay, that is the word he uses. Unfreedoms, or you can, for simplicity's sake, you can interpret as barriers or constraints. So what are these constraints that prevent you from becoming a full active economic participant? Poor access to health facilities. It is an unfreedom. Unequal access to health, we already talked about it earlier. It's an unfreedom. Unequal access to education or inequality in education, it's an unfreedom, right? Poor access to skilling services, poor access to other kind of resources, right? These are all unfreedoms. Amartya Sen says that if you are having all these unfreedoms, you cannot participate in the society, right? So how does a free society, or as we call it as a capitalist society, how does it work for these people who suffer from so many unfreedoms or so many barriers, right? Sen says that the state, it is the responsibility of the state to remove these unfreedoms, right? So instead of these unfreedoms, the state should provide them with freedoms. So freedom is a positive idea. So what is that? Health, education. So I'm saying the same word again and again because that is the theory, right? Skilling. Have you heard these three things before together anywhere else? Somewhere Amartya Sen is also connected. Have you seen these three words together? Some report, some index. Where is it? So this is the idea of Human Development Index. Okay. Yeah, correct. Kartika, that's right. This is the idea of Human Development Index. So Sen says that giving all this to our society removes the unfreedoms from the individuals, gives them the freedom to become active economic participant. Then you don't have to worry about them. They will live their life, right? So the state doesn't have to intervene in everyday activity of the individuals if they are given proper freedoms like this. Okay, so this is the idea of education, and this is why education is important to us. So I hope you have that lens, right, to understand education from a better perspective, the big picture of why education is important, right? So a National Achievement Survey recently carried out by the Union Minister of Education has found that between 2017 and 21, the literacy and numeracy skills of school students in India worsened considerably across subjects and grades. So nothing new to be learned here. This survey, they are not going to ask. Maybe from a prelim standpoint, you can know some basics about it. It's a nationally representative survey done by Ministry of Education. That is very crucial because normally education surveys are done by NGOs. For example, ASSER. Do you know what is ASSER? It is the Annual Status of Education Survey. It is the most famous education survey coming out of India. It is done by an NGO known as Pratham. So you can write it down. Very important. ASSER survey by Pratham. Every year it comes. I think it's a biannual. Every 2 years it comes out, and the news will be all about it. So I know you would have heard about it. Maybe you might have forgot about it. So it was conducted for 3, 5, 8, and 10. Conducted jointly by NCERT and CBSE. Almost 3.4 million students participated from over 1 lakh schools across 720 districts in all 36 states and union territories. They covered subjects like mathematics, language, sciences, environmental studies, social sciences, and there was various competency-based test questions. Okay. Nothing that you need to learn from here or anything. So this is something we can skip. Okay, so sorry. So I'll just show some inferences that we can draw from this. So this light color is the 2017, dark color is the 2021. So everywhere, I think you can see the slide, right? So if you look at class 3 environmental science, in 2017 it was 68%, now it is 62%. Class 5, if you look at in 2017, it is 57%, now it is 48%. In class 8, if you look at maths, it was 42 in 2017, 36 now. So considerable decrease. So you don't have to know this anything in any other way other than this, what do you call. So just put this data, like you can put this bar graph kind of a thing. So this will be 2017, this will be 2018. So this is for different things. You can create a bar graph out of this and you can keep it. This is the only data from this topic that I am, data is what you want to take from this. So competency score at the all India level, it ranges between a minimum of 41%, maximum of 65%. Competency means when you learn something, how well do you know that? Right? If you learn computer programming, do you know to write a code if you are given a question? That is the idea of competency. High and low scores, there are so many variations. The decline in competency levels in higher classes, low scores in mathematics and science are major setbacks because we are trying to become a knowledge economy, right? So the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, medicine, so these are all very important. So decline in mathematics and science, a major concern. State level competency scores, significant disparities between states, we already know that. Between the best and the worst performing states is as high as 30%. If the best state is at 100%, the worst state is at 70%. That is the gap between best and the worst. Okay, so these are some of the states. Again, you don't have to by heart all this state data or anything. Okay, so but you should know which are some of the good states. Like for example, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. You can just blindly say it when it comes to education health. Which are some of the bad states? You just give one or two numbers. Okay. Gender-wise disparities, it is actually surprising. Okay, compared to normal our reports, here the competency scores for girl students were generally higher. That means given an opportunity, girls perform better. So earlier time when you're seeing low numbers, it was because they did not have the opportunity, right? Rural urban disparities, urban areas scored much better than in rural areas. Again, an intuitive idea. So these are all very intuitive. Again, disparities across private and government schools. Class 3, government schools better. Okay, we will just score it. How did government versus public? Government, private. Okay. Okay, class 3, government 1. In class 5, private schools scored the highest. Private school had the highest competency scores in class 8 also. In class 10, highest competency scores were attained by central government, which is again government schools. Survey clearly shows the general perception that private schools deliver better education outcomes is a myth. So government schools, public, we always think that private schools are always good, right, in terms of quality and all that. But the survey shows that that is actually a myth. It is the government schools that is performing better even when they have so much challenges. Disparities across social groups, again, OBC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So the order is general, OBC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. That is the order in which their performance is coming up. Do you think it's a coincidence? No. It is because these three sections have been systematically discriminated for a long time. It will take some time for them to catch up. That is why we have reservation and affirmative action. Okay. So way forward, technology-based knowledge economy, we need competency levels in subjects like math, science. The industry disparities that need to be hugely immediately addressed. Then the rural disadvantage, gender disadvantage need to be urgently corrected. So like I said, so I want you to take all those facts, you make that bar graphs that I show, and just keep that Amartya Sen idea on education in mind. Then you are good to go as far as this topic is concerned, because you won't get a direct question from the topic. This will be written. If you're writing an essay on education, this topic can be used to cover the inequality angle. Okay, that is idea. National education policy, did you know that there is a scheme to achieve universal foundational literacy? Okay, so that is focus on reading, writing, speaking, arithmetic and mathematical thinking. So basic thing, no, reading, writing, arithmetic, we call as the 3 R's of education. So we want to achieve that to all the students. Okay, by 2025, it's a very mission mode program. So national repository of high quality resources will be made available on Diksha. So you can keep that name in mind. A prelims question, Diksha portal for what? That kind of a thing. Okay. See, over 5 crore of our students have not attained foundational literacy and numeracy. That is what we are trying to achieve. So, through something known as Nibun Bharat, National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy. Don't remember the expansion Nibun Bharat. Nibun is again about related to skilling and competency and all that. No? So, you can connect it like that. It will cover learning needs of 5 crore children in the age group of 3 to 11 years. Okay. With reference to National Achievement Survey, consider the following statements. So, okay, let me launch the poll. So, come on quickly. Okay, good. So, sharing the leaderboard. Okay, Amaljit, Dominic, Agil, Kiran, Anshika, Shivanki. I think I've read most of these names before also. Where are the other guys? Okay, good, good, good. Moving on. So, I'm sorry. What is the answer to this? At present, only government and government aided schools are covered under the survey. No, we saw private, everything was there. Only students of class 3, 5, and 8 were covered. No, 10 was also there. So, this is also wrong. The average competency scores of girl students were generally higher. Very counterintuitive, but that is correct. So, D, 3 only. Okay. Moving to our last topic of the day, study on effects of publicly financed health insurance schemes. Okay, again this all topic also needs some background or scope setting or context setting for better understanding, because the topic per se, it's very narrow in focus. Okay, the topic that we are going to discuss, but I want you to understand what this publicly funded health insurance schemes are. So in developing countries like India, health is a major thing. Like we talked about Amartya Sen, health is one of the crucial pillars of human development index. So as far as a state is concerned, the primary responsibilities of state from a social standpoint is providing health, education and skilling to the citizens. Okay, so health is one of the two or one of the three most important responsibility of the state. That is on the one side. But how is it actually being delivered in India? In India, majority of health is happening from the private sector. Why? Because our health spending as a percentage of GDP is very less. It's somewhere around 3 to 4%. Okay, very less amount of money is being spent on health sector in India from the government. So this money is not enough to cover the population. So most of them depend on private service providers. That is our infamous private hospitals. Okay, so all of you would have some experience going with a fever to a private hospital. You'll have to spend around 1,000 to 1,500. How many of you have this experience? Tell me. So you see a doctor, you'll have to spend minimum 300 to 500 for a particular doctor, right? Then the medicines, they would say some blood test or something, minimum 1,500 is gone. Okay, so this is for a fever on a single day. How many of the Indians do you think they have money to that much money to spend on one single day? So 1,500 on one day means minimum that person should have 40,000 per month. No, I mean one day if he is to spend 1,500, he has to leave on other days. No, so minimum they have to have 40,000 salary. So these are the people at least in the, I would say, top 20% of the Indian society. Yeah, that is actually right. 80% of the Indian society will be below that, right? So private hospitals are never affordable. If you get admitted in a private hospital, it's a different story. So again, you go with a fever, it is not coming down, it's a viral fever or something, or COVID, for instance. Don't take the public hospitals into account. COVID, getting admitted in private hospitals at the peak of this wave, no, second wave, minimum 1.5 lakh. I heard so many stories where people had to splurge 1.5 lakh for a fever, which if getting serious, you could even die. That is a different thing. But otherwise, which you could fend off by staying at home, right? So 1.5 lakh, especially during that oxygen shortage and all that, no, in private hospitals. Okay. So who has the money to give? Who has this kind of money? So private hospitals are a severe strain on this. So how do you reach out this health services to all the society? So we thought we'll have an insurance system. So what is this insurance system all about? The government, it's not for everyone, it is for the poorer sections of the society. It all started in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, some of you would have heard about it. Rajiv Arogya Sri Yojana. Okay, very famous, very famous. All the Indian government schemes on health insurance after that is modeled on this Andhra Pradesh scheme. Okay, so what is the idea? The individual will pay some money, the government will also contribute some money. Individual will be paying very little. So what happens is that it is a pooled insurance, right? Maybe what do you call it? 10 crore people are part of this insurance. Not all 10 crore people get a disease every day, no? So, but all 10 crore would be paying 30 rupees per month, or some government would be paying for them 30 rupees or 500 rupees per month or something like that. Okay, so many people gets covered, but there is not so much of expenses. This is the idea of publicly financed health insurance. Okay, to cover more people, especially in the inpatient care. What is inpatient care? Inpatient care are situations where you have to stay overnight in the hospital, or we call it as you get admitted in the hospital, right? Because inpatient care, I said, no, it is almost 1.5 lakh per in a private hospital. Nobody can afford it, obviously. So government was focusing more on providing inpatient care through insurance. So this is the basic context that I want you to have. Okay. So the impact of publicly financed health insurance schemes on out-of-pocket expenditure and utilization of health services is known, but its impact on equity in health services need to be understood. That is what we are trying to understand. So there is a term out-of-pocket expenditure. So it's a very famous when it comes to health economics. What is out-of-pocket expenditure? When you go to a hospital, how much of the money you have to pay from your hand to get the health service? Okay, if you go to a private hospital, you have to pay all your money out of your hand. In government hospital, it would be mostly for medicines. In states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu and all, you even get the medicines for free in government hospitals. So that is the idea of out-of-pocket expenditure. So if the out-of-pocket expenditure is more than 10% of your annual income or something like that, it is known as catastrophic health expenditure. Catastrophic means extremely damaging. It's kind of a disaster for that individual. You earn 50,000 in 1 year, 5,000 for one hospital admission. You are that's a catastrophic expense. You have to leave all your entire year with that 45,000. So that is the idea of catastrophic expenditure. So this out of expenditure we can reduce by giving the health insurance, but here we are looking at the equity concern. So when it comes to health service, what do you mean by equity? That means the access to health services should be based on the needs of the individual rather than their ability to pay. Okay, so see, since most of us, at least all of you listening, would have been born in the post-liberalization era, I'm assuming that. So all of us have ingrained this idea of capitalism that if you don't pay it, there are no free lunches, right? If you don't pay it, you don't get it. Okay. So we always think that, okay, so why don't you pay for it? If you want health services, why don't you pay for it? But in India, unfortunately, people don't have that privilege. They don't have that money to pay for health services, but they get sick, right? So they become sick, but no money. Okay. So if these people cannot access health service, that is known as inequity. That means health services is provided based on people's money only, not on people's needs. But equity means people are given health services based on their needs. If they are sick, they get treatment. If they are not sick, they don't get any treatment, right? We don't need it also. So that is the idea of equity. So it is a major healthcare reform that has been achieved to achieve universal health coverage. It reduces healthcare access inequity by targeting poor people and ensuring need-based access. This is what we are talking about, right? So 2008, the Indian government launched Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. So Andhra launched the Rajiv Arogyasri just before that. I think it is in 2004 or 5, if my memory serves me correct. And later in 2018, we launched the National Health Protection Scheme. Under that, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, right? This is what we launched in 2018. So both of these are publicly financed health insurance schemes. So this is an improvement of RSBY. Okay. So what is the main aim? To increase access to inpatient services for poor people, as inpatient services were lead to catastrophic health expenditure. So we explained all this before, right? So across developing countries, target vulnerable groups to achieve horizontal equity in the utilization of health services. What is horizontal equity? That means equity or equal access between people from all sections of the society. People who are earning 1 lakh per month, people who are earning 10 crore per month, people who are earning 1,000 per month, people who are not earning anything. Everyone should get access to health services. That is horizontal equity. Okay. So this is the reason for publicly financed health insurance schemes. So what is the state of health insurance in India as per the National Family Health Survey? So in these states like Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc., fewer than 40% of the households have at least one member. That means more than 60% is not covered by any health insurance. So poor people of there, they have no choice. They will have to go and suffer this expenditure from private hospitals. And even in these states, number of household members who prefer private sector are relatively higher. Okay. So they spend more on health. So no public hospitals, only private hospitals. So out of pocket spending goes up. That is the logic. In these states, not only insurance coverage is low, but the share of those insured by the government schemes are also relatively low. And adding to this, insurance is extremely low in this way. That is the insurance seen in one setup. In Jammu and Kashmir, less than 12% is covered by insurance. Okay, so 88% they have to spend money out of their hands when they get a disease. Telangana and Andhra, insurance coverage and share of government schemes are relatively high, where we talked about Rajiv Arogyasri. But those who sought private sector for their health needs, that were also high. That means schemes were there, insurance was there, but the public hospitals may not be that good. That is why everyone is going to the private sector. So this is the scene in the Indian scenario. Now let us look at the specific findings of the study that we set out to do. That is, how equitable equity in healthcare access through public funded health insurance schemes. That means where the sick people who are poor were able to get services, right? So it says that the PFHIs have a positive impact on equity or equality of utilization of inpatient services, with the pro-rich inequality declining more for rural areas. So it's a bit technical term. So basically, when it comes to hospital care, there is something known as pro-rich inequality. That means inequality is pro-rich. That is, inequality is biased in favor of the rich people. Actually, what we want is pro-poor inequality. Okay, if at all there is inequality, it should be more in favor of the poor. Are you getting the point? So if at all, just imagine there is a hospital. Okay, the hospital is discriminating someone. Okay, if at all they are discriminating, whom should they discriminate? They should discriminate the poorer people, right? That is the idea of pro-poor inequality. But earlier our health system has pro-rich inequality. That means it is inequality in favor of the rich. That means hospitals charge more money for inpatient. That means only rich people get admitted. That means equity is violated, right? Equity, as we explained it. But however, it is coming down. Pro-rich inequality is coming down as a result of PFHI. That means it's a good thing. There is overall increase in the utilization of inpatient services, which is higher for the poorer sections of population and in the rural areas. Extremely good. So because of this publicly funded health insurance schemes, more poor people are getting admitted in hospitals, right? Otherwise, they had no other go. They would not have any opportunity to get admitted. Higher inequity in healthcare access. However, there is still inequity in healthcare access, but that is associated with poor public health infrastructure, poor performance of the public health system. So even though this publicly funded health insurance schemes, let us just call it as health insurance schemes, even though they have reduced inequity in access to healthcare, inequity still persists because of a overall poorly managed public health system. That is lack of adequate doctors in hospital, lack of adequate beds to patients ratio. If there are 1 lakh people and if you put 10 beds there, it is not going to be adequate, right? That is a situation. So inequity still persists in those levels, infrastructure level and the overall performance of the system. And the lower levels of inequity are associated with higher coverage of poor population. So wherever the poorer population are covered under publicly financed health insurance schemes, inequity has dropped down. Okay, so what is our takeaway from our study? Inequity has dropped down wherever PFHI was implemented. So very simple and straightforward. This is our takeaway. Okay. Income inequality in the utilization of inpatient services. Actually, the annual inpatient rate, that means the amount of people who get admitted in hospitals, it has almost doubled from 2.4 in 2004 to 4.4 in 2014. So there is a doubling happened. So it is partly a result of this. So this is richest, higher for the richest person, not important. Okay, there is another known as illegitimate or income-based inequality. So what is this? Ideally, as per the equity principles that we are talking, the actual use of health services should be dependent on need alone. So that means if you are sick, you should get the health services, right? And it should be independent of non-need factors. That means it should be independent of your gender, the money you have, your economic status and all that. So for the poorest quintile means people, different segments of the population. For the people in the bottommost sections or the poorest people in the country, the need for use is higher than actual use. Let me explain it. So people who, just imagine, who earn 10,000 per year, that means they are in the poorest sections of the society. They will be getting sick for so many reasons. They would want to get admitted to hospitals for 80 days in a year. Just imagine, it's a hypothetical number. But they are just getting admitted for 40 days. Okay. This is their need for use. This is their actual requirement. They need to get admitted for 80 days because they are getting so many diseases at different times in the year. Maybe some infection, maybe some fever, maybe some fracture, but they need to get admitted for 80 days. But due to lack of access to health insurance or due to some other reason, they're actually getting admitted only for 40 days. So this is the need for use, this is the actual use. So there is a disparity between the poorer people. Let us look at the richer people. In richer people, it is inverted. It is the other way around. So in rich people, the need for use is 40%, but they actually use 80%. I'm not putting the exact numbers or proportion or anything, just to show you the image. Even though they need to get hospitalized only for 40 days because their diseases are only that severe, but they are extra cautious about their health and they have money also. They have proper insurance like star insurance, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 20 lakh insurance and all that. So even if they don't have a serious illness, they just get admitted. So this is their need for use, this is their actual use. It's actually inverted. Just imagine the gross inequality in the system, right? So this is what we are talking about. Okay, so basically the study shows that effective targeting through public funded health insurance schemes are very important for reducing inequity. We need to do it further. There has to be sustained efforts through such systems. So the launch of Ayushman Bharat is a very positive step. Okay, so I hope you have understood. Let me just recall the ideas that we talked, because it seems to be a bit tough one. Basically, public funded health insurance schemes are known to reduce inequity. So how did we define equity? Equity means your access to health services should be determined by your need for health services, not by your ability to pay for it. So if your access to health services is determined by your ability to pay for it, it is inequity. If your access to health services is determined by your need for health services, it is equity. So publicly funded health insurance schemes, earlier the RSBY, Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, now the Ayushman Bharat PMJY, they have all increased or improved the equity scenario, increased the inpatient care given to patients and all that. So we have to still keep on improving. So far it is good, but we have to keep on doing better. That is the idea. So the last question. Okay. So this was our last round. So there are some people who are saying they are feeling sleepy. Okay, I understand your situation. So we'll finish it soon, friends. Okay, so let us discuss it. Status of health insurance. In 2007, Maharashtra became the first Indian state. No, we said about it. It's Andhra Pradesh, erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. As per fifth NFHS findings, fewer than 40% of households had at least one member covered by the health insurance. So that is correct. So B is the correct answer. Okay. Okay. So that was largely it. So I hope you have understood that topic. Okay, so Banu has raised a question. So we will be taking questions. So pose all your questions. How women can contribute in cultural development and social and economic and political development? Please forward. Okay. How women can contribute to social, economic, and political. So, okay. So all of you listen for one moment. It's a very important idea. So how women empowerment happens in the world, wherever it has happened, how did it happen? There is a one particular route for it. Okay. How does it start? It starts through economic empowerment. So when I am talking wherever it happened in India, in Kerala, Kudumbasri experience is very much like this. In Bangladesh, the Grameen Bank experience is very much like this. So it's a very replicable model. So you can write it in your answer, you can write it in your essay. First, you empower them economically. So that means you enroll them in a self-help group. Okay. Give them micro loans. Okay, they start small enterprises like making chips or doing small jobs, or they come together as a group and they do collective farming. So all of them happens to economically empower them. So self-help groups, they put all of this money into self-help group. Each one put maybe 5 or 10 rupees per month, but since the group is 20 or 30, that becomes a sizable number. Almost all the state governments have have some schemes to support the self-help group. The state will give some amount of loan for them. So what will they do? The self-help group will give this loan back to the women. They will start some enterprises. So economic empowerment happens. So when economic empowerment happens, what results? The women bring money to the family. So naturally, when women bring money, they'll take care of their children. So girls and boys, children's health and education comes to the forefront. That is one thing. Secondly, because of the money they bring to the family, their status slightly improves, right? So now they are also earning member. The husband cannot just like rubbish them or cannot put them to a corner, because they also add value to the family. Even before they were adding value, but at least it was intangible. Now it is money, everyone can see it. Their status within the family improves. So once the family status improves, and eventually their social status improves, so leading to social empowerment. So that is the second stage. And when these two happens, the women are empowered by now. There is economic empowerment. They have some money. They start some enterprise. So I'll explain it through a Kudumbashree experience itself. So what happens is that in this self-help group or their local level neighborhood groups are there, they all put in money. So they will take loans out of it. They will start up small enterprises. I said, no, like chip making or umbrella manufacturing, small farming. They will lease out land from some landlords. Even the panchayat or the state system will act as an intermediary, entering into a contract. There will be a 20 or 30 Kudumbashree members. They will do some farming which is really remunerative, which brings return. Okay, they might cultivate fruits or vegetables or something which immediately brings returns in our society, right? So they get money from it. That money, some of the money they will deposit, some of the money they will bring back to the investment part. So they bring money to the family. That is the economic empowerment. Second is the social empowerment. Naturally, their status gets improved. In Kerala, what happened is that along with this running of Kudumbashree started around 93, 94 times. So 10 years into its operation, by 2004 times, the Kerala government passed a legislation to reserve 50% of the seats in local self-government for women. Okay. In national level, it is only 33%. Kerala, it is 50%. But what actually happened is that more than 90% of the representatives in the local elections were women. Okay. And out of this, I would say 98% were from Kudumbashree. So what did happen? Economic empowerment to social empowerment, that finally led to political empowerment. They understood that there is power in their groups. They can do anything if they stay together. So they stood together like that. They started participating in elections. They started becoming legislators. If you go to Kerala, if you look at local self-government, majority, I would say more than 90%, it's all women. Okay, and they are doing efforts to improve the roads, to give midday meals to their school children, to improving their Anganwadis, getting all the support possible during the COVID time. So everything happens because of this experiment. Okay, so this is how economic empowerment happens. So I hope what you asked is very clear. So Abhijit is saying that hassle-free online platform for selling goods produced by small farms. Yeah, that is a solution. This Mahila Heart, these are all initiatives for that only, Abhijit. So that is a good point only. So if women empowerment is more in government jobs due to reservation, will it be a threat to men as they have to sacrifice their life as house husband or need to go overseas for survival? Actually, nothing like that. So the problem is your thought is something known as zero-sum game. Okay, so this is in game theory. I'm not going there. You are thinking that if women gets, the man loses. Okay, that is why maybe I don't think you are thinking that. Maybe it's just a fear. So it is not like that. It is not a zero-sum game. Both, I mean, the society or the economy has ample resources for both of you to grow. Okay, the man and the woman can grow. The husband and the wife can be well employed. So you just look at families, or if you personally know families where both husband and wife employed or only husband employed. Which family has better economic situation? Which family has better I mean, I wouldn't say happiness, but they have more money for spending on their essentials. Which family has more money when it comes to spending on their health and education of their kids, right? So it is not going to affect men in any significant way. Okay, so don't be Loss to public exchequer, Shivangi, loss to public exchequer means, so exchequer is to denote the finance ministry. Loss to public exchequer means loss to public money. So our taxpayers' money, no, that money gets lost. That is the idea. So Sarabjit is asking to summarize the last topic. So Sarabjit, this is what the summary is basically. Publicly funded health insurance schemes can increase equity in access to healthcare services. What is equity? Equity means our ability to access health services based on our need. That means you can go and get health when you are sick. When you are sick, to get into the hospital, money is not a barrier. Okay, that means you are sick, but you don't have money, and then you cannot go to the hospital. That is inequity. But if you are sick, you can go to the hospital. That is equity. And publicly funded health insurance schemes have increased health equity in this country because they have supported inpatient care. What is this inpatient care? Hospitalization. So this is the route. This is not a direct route. They supported inpatient care. So more people who wanted inpatient care, who belonged to a poorer section, started availing the insurance. So they started getting better health services. That is the idea. Technology knowledge based economy. See, knowledge based economy means, see, so far what was driving our economy? It was material production, right? It is industries, factories. Those were the things that were driving the economic growth. But currently knowledge economy means it is your intellectual capital that is driving it. What is the production that is happening in Facebook? What is the production that is happening in Google, right? Two of the most what you call richest companies in the world. There is no production. They're not producing anything. No, they are just creating materials from knowledge, or they are innovating out of the knowledge, or they are playing in the knowledge economy. That is the idea. Okay. Please show first topic's mains question. So you can take the PDF, you will get the PPT, so you can see from it. If you want another mains question from the first topic, that is a population topic. See, I am expecting a topic like this is something how it will goes. Maybe you can write and send it to Target IAS for evaluation tomorrow. So demographically speaking, there are two Indias. Okay. In light of this context, critically analyze the public welfare measures that should be taken by the government to address this particular scenario. Okay, I'll repeat. Demographically, there are two Indias. Critically analyze the public welfare initiatives that should be taken by the government to address this particular scenario. Okay, so that is something you can write and send it to us. Ali Hussain is asking, if all private schools are demolished, will the government schools provide better education? So Ali, it's not a very simple question. It's a very difficult and complex economic questions. So we might always think about simple answers to education and health problem. See, I have heard people saying that, okay, you abolish all private schools, let all bureaucrats' children go to government schools, then government schools will naturally improve. But that is not practical. No? So it's a big complex situation, but it will have to, I mean, there are clear steps on how to improve it. First and foremost, you have to spend more money on public education, no doubt about it, because the country is not going to be grown or going to become developed by few rich people getting good jobs. The country is going to develop only when the majority of Indians who are currently poor, who can get good education, good health, and join the workforce, they are the people who will move the economy, right? The rich people, they just get some money in the top, they just enjoy in resorts and all that. They're not adding so much value to the economy. They are not changing economy in terms of scale. They are very few in number. But when all the poorer sections of the society, when they get educated, the economy moves, as in how happened in China. Okay, so Shubham is asking, so there is so much of criminal cases against our politicians. So how will our politician make laws that will be preventing them? So it's a very good question. So Shubham, the answer to that is, See, politicians always respond to incentives. So, or in other words, politicians always respond to factors that will help them get re-elected. Okay, so as far as politician is concerned, he wants to get re-elected. Sorry. Re-elected. Okay. So who decides the re-election of the politicians? It is we who decide, right? So if we can put enough public pressure on politicians to create a law, they will create a law. Just imagine the farmers strike. Why did they withdraw? Right? See, even if you look at it, see, there are so many economists who believe that the laws were good, their intention was right, but the way it was implemented, there was no stakeholder consultation or anything. That was the problem. Okay, but however, when all the farmers stood out there and they protested the government had to backtrack, right? So why did they backtrack? Because they feared their elections. They thought they might not win the next election. That is why they backtracked. Okay, so public pressure can always do wonders. You don't have to expect politicians to do good. We can make them do good if we act sensibly, right? So Ashwin is asking elusiveness. Elusiveness means escaping. So why is equality escaping? The escape of gender equality, or why are we not able to get hold of gender equality? Why is it always escaping from us? That is the idea. Okay. So I think I've taken most of it. So is there any other question that you want to look into? Yeah, Kinsa is saying like the famous Lijat puppet, all run and managed by village women. Yeah, that's a good example. Asar Pratham, nothing to explain there. Asar Adil. So Asar is a report. It's an annual status of education report. It studies or it looks into the educational outcomes of Indian school children. Okay, it's a very authentic data because it is not published by government. The government data when it comes to education health doesn't have much authenticity because the government wants to manipulate the data so that the government will look good. No, so Asar is an independent data published by this Pratham. So it is taken very seriously by policymakers in the country. That is the idea. Dorji is saying, I have answered all the questions correctly and my name is not in the leaderboard. I think I didn't scroll it fully. Maybe that's the issue. Okay. Don't worry about it. So we know that you have done all the questions, right? So I think that's it, friends. So let's Okay, Sakshi, I'll take last one question. How demonetization is a reason for loss in women job? Okay, quick answer. See, demonetization has seriously affected informal economy, right? The economy that is what you call more than 90% of Indian economy is informal. That means it is not formal jobs. It's not like in a corporate setting or it's not like a government job or anything. It's like small shops, small vendors, small MSMEs making things for big companies, and it's all informal sector. They don't have any job security, they don't have pensions, provident funds, gratuity, nothing. Okay, very precarious, insecure jobs. And in India, majority of the women employment also happens to be in this informal sector. Okay, so demonetization affected informal sector severely, and by virtue of it, it affected women jobs severely. That is because most of Indian women have jobs in the informal sector. It is because Indian women do not get so much jobs in formal sector because Indian women is not given proper education, proper health by their families or by the state. Understand? That is why Indian women have to find jobs in the informal sector. Actually, there is so many suggestions to improve or create women-friendly jobs in this country. Okay. So I hope that is clear to you, Sakshi. Demographic dividend. What is dividend? So if you are investing in a company, you will get the profit of the company as dividend. What is it? It is the advantage you get because of some demographic characteristic. That means in Indian case, if you look at it, the accelerated economic growth that becomes possible when there is so many sections of the population in the productive working age group, that is, sorry, between 15 to 59 age group. This is a working age group. If there is almost 70% of their population, our population in this group, the remaining is only 30, no? People between 0 to 15 and people over 60 are only 30%. So this 70% of the society, they can contribute to the growth. Understand? So the resulting advantage, that is known as demographic dividend. Okay, so I am just taking one more doubt. So if anybody is feeling sleepy, you can go, but I just want to take this also. Argya has asked, will you please repeat Amartya Sen's theory? Since it is important, I'm just quickly saying it about. So Sen says that to achieve development, development means socio-economic development, improvements of our people's lives, that is development. To achieve development, we need freedoms. Okay. According to Sen, what are these freedoms? Freedoms will come to us when we remove unfreedoms from our life. What is this unfreedoms? It is lack of health. Having health is not unfreedom. Lack of health is unfreedom. So I have a space constraint here. Lack of education. This is an unfreedom. Lack of skilling. This is an unfreedom. Lack of opportunity for women to make choices about their life. It's an unfreedom. When you remove all these unfreedoms and you impart them these freedoms, that is health, education, etc., these people will automatically develop. They will utilize these freedoms, health, education, skilling, etc., to rise to their fullest potential. That is Amartya Sen's idea of human development or development as freedom. Okay. Okay then. Okay, friends. So thanks for your attention. Thanks for waiting till the last. Okay then. Thank you. That's the end of the session. Bye.